Hey, welcome back to Stasis Geek, and I'm here with Sandy Q to talk about a film we were talking about off stream on other streams, Napoleon. So this is a first Sunday night review with this. Yeah, you've had a little technical glitch there, but nobody saw it, so that was good. But yeah, Sandy,
You didn't have to say
let's
it.
go.
No one saw
I
it.
mean, I know nobody saw it, but I like to say it. But yeah, so I think we just both were looking forward to this because like I think they could have done this film really really well. So yeah, it's it's an in like you saw it before me, and I think you had to bite your tongue quite a bit
I
to not to
did. I really
tell
did.
me a little bit about it because yeah, there was moments I was looking like I they kind of got in the background, people saying different things about the movie. I was like, no, I'm gonna go in. It's different. Like Ridley Scott was kind of saying different things, and I was like, "Ugh, what's going on?" So it's 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 not it's not the I, we'll go for scores later, but I would say it's a meh movie, like a
It's a
mid
big
movie.
topic. And
Yeah,
I think that's the problem. It's such a big subject that, you know, I think we all had high expectations.
mm,
I think it had a lot of opportunity, but I'll go with your meh. I'll go with meh.
yeah. Yeah, it is just meh. It's strange because I when I say I was strange, I was worried that because of the trailer they were going to romanticize Napoleon and Josephine, and it was going to be this epic romanticized story, and it was going to romanticize like Napoleon as this great campaign leader, his achievements through the banking, his law changes, and all that, and we didn't get any of that, but we
No.
got something weirder. And I was like, oh, I don't get what they're going for because, okay, the first, I suppose, 10, 20 minutes, I was like, okay, they're gearing up here, they're building it up. Um, they're they're getting into like a good state to show how his aspect of his life getting through to the epic conclusion of Waterloo. But I was like, oh, they're gonna do something, and then it just went odd. And that's why I must say, like the movie itself, and we're going to get onto the historical bit later. Like the whole bit of they don't really explain his background of like
Right.
Corsica, of like the little corporal. That's what he was known as, and then I think he starts on as I can't remember what they call it. I think it's a colonel. I can't remember, but he goes straight into a campaign um in Toulouse to take over a fort that's controlled by the British. And then I was like, oh, this is building up. This is getting quite nice. Okay, there's certain aspects I don't like, but they could move on. And then it just went bizarre. And I mean, bizarre is the whole Josephine bit. I didn't get it. I got it as what they were trying to portray, but I don't get why they thought it was a good idea of like this weird um it's not like it was called the Romance of the Ages, wasn't it? Or like the decade. And they just went a bit weird and it's a bit odd. Like I think everybody's seen it if you've not seen the movie in the trailer, when she kind of lifts up her skirt on the third meeting and she's like, this is something you'll always want. And I'm
Once you
like,
see it, you'll always
yeah,
want it.
yeah. And I was like, this is get okay, they're making this like sexual perversion, but they're going to love each other. Hey man. And it was just like it just wasn't romantic. It just wasn't like this perverted sexual adventure between the two of them.
Mhm.
It was just odd. Like there's I think there's like three kind of I wouldn't even call them sex scenes. Is like he just humps her from behind, and that is the best way I could explain it. It's literally a rabbit humping something, and then he does his business and moves off, and that's it. And I'm like, it's a bit odd. So I can understand why a lot of people are a bit weird about that aspect of it, because I found it like in the movie it broke it up too much because it is a long movie.
Yes.
It's like what it and that whole romanticize like I can't you have to call it romanticized, but it isn't
Mhm.
really. It's that whole section breaks that movie up so badly because you're going into the first bit is you've got the revolution and Napoleon's there for some cinema reason, and then it just goes into this political aspect that is showing that the French are, and not saying they are, but it makes out the French don't know what they're doing in
Yeah.
their own political sphere. They had an idea, they can't now justify an idea, and then they just go arrest people, shoot people, guillotine, blah blah blah, and it just makes the whole political aspect of like the French make them look dumb. They don't know where they're going, and then you've got the Josephine section of how it's the romance. It's not. It's weird, and then you have his campaigns thrown in. So you have the Egyptian campaign, but not really shown because he's just in Egypt and
Hmm.
goes up to that mummy, and you don't understand what it doesn't explain who the mummy or where he is or why he is there. And then it goes back to her, and then it goes back to another campaign in the ice campaign in the with the ice scene in Russia.
Austerlitz.
Yeah, and that on the ice, great, love that bit. I think
Yeah,
it was
that was
really
well
well
done.
cinematography. It was really well done cinematography wise. It was really well done, and then it goes back, but then your bits in them when it goes back for the love story are drawn out to this weird dialogue that I'm just like, it's a bit odd. It's a
It,
bit odd.
we've said the word odd several times,
Yeah.
when we were talking about this before. You can make a film that covers different aspects of someone's life, but you weave them in like
Mm.
into a theme or some kind of direction. And I think you're absolutely right that the romantic scenes broke up the rest of the film, or
Yeah.
vice versa. If you're making a romantic movie, then the battle scenes and covering these campaigns, I felt like it was a race. Like,
Mm.
even though this film was 2 hours and 40 some minutes long, I felt like Ridley Scott is just racing to hit all the key points.
Oh, yeah. I say the historical bit, but if you don't know like a slight bit of history about this time period and who Napoleon is, you will come out this confused because even though it comes
Absolutely.
up in the movie, it does like now and again, it does like a a, a timestamp and where they are, but it's not in relation to the last scene. So
Not at all.
there is no time jump of like it feels like this movie is set within 6 months. That's it. It feels like a 6 month love affair from him at the beginning doing the fall onto Waterloo. It could be six
It
months.
does,
That
and
is
it's
it
30
because they're
years. It's covering
yeah.
30 years.
Now yeah, because now going on to the movie, I think the casting is completely wrong because um what's his name? Phoenix is sorry, no, what's
Joaquin
his
Phoenix.
I was going to say wacky. Yeah, is he's too old. He's too old. If they're going to have somebody, they
Yes.
should have either de-aged him, and then that would have given that um uh, a feeling of like the progression of where he's going because he's a corporal starting off and then going like higher up. I know they jumped that section, but they like when he gets to like the end of the movie, he should be quite in established in his years, I suppose, in that kind of thing. But then Josephine is older. She's 6 years older than him
Yes.
in real life,
And
and
she
it's
lied
it
about her age, by the way.
yeah.
So she was more than 6 years older than him
Mm,
because she lied. She was notorious for shaving off a few years every year.
mm,
So she could have been 12 years older than
yeah.
him.
Yeah, but it was known like in like I'm gonna go to the history that she looked older, so it's like that. So it's weird. Now I say there is the positive because the first bit I believed it was going to build up to something, and then you had the weird romance, and then you had the battle on the ice, let's call it. What is I thought was very good. It got you engaged. It looked great. It kind of got you a bit excited, and then it just dropped down again because it went to odd. Let's go. It didn't even go back to romance. It didn't go
Yeah.
back to this, like the bits about them, like he's writing letters back, and um, like there's no answer. That's like the romance there isn't there, and it's just this kind of oddity when they come back. and then it's just and then like the race of everything from his coronation, it's just skipped over. Now they could have made that scene like a royal grandeur, like over the top spectacle, like on cinema, really over the top. And that even that whole scene, I was like, oh, they're gonna really play with it. It's less than like 3 minutes. It's just
That
like what you see in the
surprised
trailer is
me.
what you think. Yeah,
I was glad, I guess it was a little cheesy, but I was glad that they showed, you know, the portrait being painted because that's the famous portrait in the
yes,
Louvre. And
yeah,
I've stood in front of that portrait, which is immense. It's amazing. But you're right. He made that such a spectacle.
mm,
And I guess we're bleeding into history a little bit here, but he
mhm.
made that such a spectacle that on screen it could have been more of a spectacle.
Yeah,
Did he have people bow down to him? Did he we There could have been so much more to that. I agree.
mm,
That was fast. Again, it felt like we were racing toward this. And I thought to myself with the pacing, okay, we must be racing for a reason. We are
yeah,
racing for like some amazing maybe reflection before the end of his life, or we're racing to spend a lot of time at Waterloo.
yeah.
That's what we're racing for. And we weren't. We
No,
weren't racing
but
toward anything because each of the successive scenes was just as short and choppy as the
mm,
previous ones.
yeah, it's like and like even I suppose you would only class it as really you see three campaigns like the Fort, the ice scene, and then Waterloo. They are rushed. They are like you would
So
like
rushed.
each one could have been like half an hour, and you would have been happy in your seat. Literally, you would have been you loved it because it's like gripping. But then that drop off of everything, like even when he's made, I think it's like they call it third console, didn't they, with the three
Yeah.
in the movie, and then next minute he's just I'm now your first console, but it's okay. What's the political aspect of that? And it just that's to say there was no idea how to connect all the aspects, and that's why like even uh, the confusing bit is like when he goes into his first exile, and
Right.
then it's like
He
there a
brings
day.
himself back.
He's like, yeah, and yeah, he is, but he's there. He's like, how long has he been gone? It's no, it's literally, it feels like a day. In that, it's like I think it was like
It does.
100 days, wasn't it?
100
He was,
days. Yeah.
yeah, 100 days, and it's. I thought, okay, they're gonna play on this. This is gonna be the interesting bit. It's gonna show him how revered and loved he was because it was known when he was going through the towns. The was it Louis the XVII who was back on the throne? I think it's Louis the XVII.
17th or 18th. I don't know.
Yeah,
One of
I
the
always get
Louis.
confused. Too many Louis, yeah.
Too many Louis.
When he comes back on the throne, they were like, "Oh, he's not loved. He made a disaster." And but every village town he went to, they were like, "Oh, singing his praises," and that's documented in history. But that even wasn't even on there. He wasn't meted with like they should have like he got on and kissed the sand, and then a couple of people were like, "Oh, look," kind of amazed, like the kids were revealing it, and then it was just gone. It was just like I've got now to just outskirts of Paris, met with another
An
unit,
infantry unit. Yeah, and
infantry,
they
yeah, and
all
then
follow the
they all
emperor. Yeah, right.
yeah,
After 5 seconds of him
yeah, yeah,
telling
and I was
you
like,
you're all follow the emperor, that
and I was like, okay, that's weird. Like and then like there's moments in it. I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna play on, like, are we gonna see like the eagle? That's like he's famous for his eagles. The Imperial Guard, he's famous for all this. It's just like I just didn't get where they wanted to focus on because they jumped on to the next stage so quick. You're like, oh, they're not gonna tell me about that. Like the Louis the XVII bit, if you didn't know that they reinstated the king and there was a time scale when there was a Louis the XVII was back as
very
the king,
confusing.
you
Yep.
would like, oh, and all it made out was there's a fat guy, really overweight, and it was that the guy came in and just went, Majesty, Napoleon's back. And he was like, oh, with his little dog and freaked out. And the next scene, he's with Arthur Wellesley, have it like having a conversation over things, but he doesn't say anything else. And you're like, oh, that is an important part, should be shown of like what happened there. Why was it reinstated? And it was just a bit odd because it just made out that the reasons Napoleon did his things is because he was just a git. And I mean that is because you have like you have it like he's Austria. Why Austria against him? There's a reason, because Marie Antoinette. That's why they hated
Right.
each other at each time. And then you have the Russians and Alexander, and then the guy actually the actor who played Alexander, I thought he actually played it quite well. I
He
thought
was
he was
very
the
good.
best. Yeah, very good in it. But the reason they do that in like the invasion into Russia, it's just because he got annoyed because it was just there wasn't a reason to his campaigns. It was just like I'm Billy Big Bollocks. I'm a bit annoyed, and I'm little corporal kind of syndrome, and that's why I'm doing it. There was no, they didn't explain the reasons why he was doing what he was doing. It was just like I just get annoyed at people, so I need to invade their country because they won't have me as the emperor. And
And
I was
that's
just
where they
like,
missed, because
yeah,
the film could have taken, it could have taken purely the romantic path. It could have taken the, rise to power path.
mm,
It could have taken like Napoleon as a person path, and it did not do any of those because it tried to hit on too many. Like to your point with regard to Russia. Okay, it's his ego. He doesn't like the fact that the Russian emperor is slightly more popular with the other, potentates um, around Europe.
mm,
He makes decisions. Try not to get in the history part, but he makes decisions in a very calculated way that is,
yeah,
that is studied today in military academies. They missed all of that,
yeah,
and the calculus in his mind, taking all of the potential, and they kind of showed it in the Austerlitz
mm,
scene. So I'll give them credit for that. But taking into account all the possible scenarios and planning for any possible deviation from what he thinks the enemy's going to do, that is what he did, and
yeah,
and he did that well, and they captured it in that one scene. But this is a movie. It's called Napoleon. I don't feel like I know Napoleon now before
no,
this film, because I don't know much about the Napoleon
mm,
campaigns. It's not taught extensively in American schools. So I read the Andrew Roberts biography, which is excellent, but you get a picture of the man through that biography. And here, I wanted more of that. Like,
mm,
he's here, he's making strange decisions. I don't know why. He's acting bizarrely. I don't know why.
yeah.
You want
It
that why.
yeah. Just say like if you go by the actual acting and the actual movie, they do it well. The only problem is with them doing it well is they've been told to act this way, and this is your understanding of Napoleon and Josephine's life, and they act it well. It's just odd to watch, but they act it really well. It's just like
I think it's
I
down to the
don't get
writing.
what, yeah, I don't get what you're trying to portray. What I understand they're acting it, but I don't understand what they're doing and why we're being shown it. It's like there's the weird scene they're all having around the dinner table, and then he's like, "Oh, if you don't produce me an heir tonight, we're gonna get a divorce." And I'm like, that is a big part of history of why this moment is. It's because
Mhm.
political sphere were giving it back on him. They were putting pressure on him, and it's known he was so uncontrollable of like tears and like shaking when he had to sign, his divorce papers, that he didn't want it to happen. So it
He
would have
was
been
very
good
upset.
to show the actual, insensitivity of the political realm behind him to say, if you need to get rid of her. They didn't like him in the first place, but then the pressure of him going, it's there. And like, even when he like, he remarries, I suppose, like his words were like, I'm marrying a womb because I'm not in
Mhm.
love. And it would have been good. That is in history. It's more of like, I suppose, a not very romantic how it's done, but it shows how in love he was with Josephine. But in this, it just looks like Josephine did it to up her stakes, and then um, Napoleon's just going through the motions of it, and it's just a bit odd. So
It
it's odd.
doesn't jive. Yeah, it definitely doesn't jive with
Okay.
what we
S
know.
Yeah. See you
But
later then, Ben. Catch you later. We're probably ranting for a while.
but getting back to
Mm,
that particular scene, how many times have we seen Henry VIII portrayed?
mm,
And very quickly, even those who don't know Tudor history understand his obsession with having a male heir.
yeah,
Very quickly, you can convey that. And again, in this film, although we understand why, because now he's emperor, therefore it's a hereditary rule that's been put in place, but we don't understand. Like, I think
yeah,
it's shoehorned in there. I think,
mm,
oh, okay, she has to have a kid. Why? Oh, yeah, that's right. He's an emperor now.
yeah.
It doesn't flow. And again, it's broken up.
Mm.
Um,
But even to that point, it's I say it is in the writing, because the
yeah,
part in this when she sends her eldest son to retrieve her the father's
the
saber,
sword.
the sword, and then so he goes to like, and he goes in and he goes like, oh, like he bred them well or something, didn't he? But in, I know, going to history, but in history he adopts her children, and then
Mhm.
that kid is high prominence as a military like colonel, well respected through his campaigns. But
Eugene.
that would have
Mhm.
been that would have been easier to show that timescale with that kid, to show him progressing for ages. If they didn't do it with the main cast, they could have done it with the kids. But they
That's
just left
true.
it. Yeah, they just
That would
left
have
it
been
out
a
as,
great
yeah,
opportunity to show
mm,
that as the kids get older, that's how
yeah,
we're that would have been a great opportunity. By the way, kudos to that young actor. I thought
mm,
he did a tremendous job
yeah.
in that scene. He was great. He was really great. But yeah,
That's the
and
thing. You
then
can't knock the acting, but the acting,
it's the
I say,
writing.
it's just the writing to it. It's because they just mismatch a story that, yeah, like there are, yeah, in the 70s and the 80s, like you have great Napoleon parts, like like where they show either the campaign or the love story. That is it. They go for it like either. They don't show, like, you don't mix and match both. This was, we want a love story, but we don't. We're going to show a bit of the revolution, a bit of the political, a bit of his campaigns, and then the ending, and him and then in exile. But we're not going to show you that much. Like, it would have been, this movie would have worked if they did it as a flashback.
Or a
If they
greatest hits
started off,
album.
if they yeah, yeah, if they started off in St. Helier, of
Yes.
him getting, not leading his greatest life, he's kind of at the end of it, but he remembers, as the times, and then that gets disjointed, and that's why you only see snippets, and then it goes back to St. Helier, and it's blah blah. It would have been, it would have been better.
That would have been a great approach. That
Mm.
and in fact, I kind of thought that's what it might be.
Yeah,
Like when we start off and okay, really ticked off at seeing him at Marie Antoinette's execution because we know that didn't happen. For some reason,
I think that is there because people have heard of Marie Antoinette, so they give
yeah,
her like that big hair. She's got, like, they give her that kind of look still, and that is there to go. Oh, I know that person in history. If you're
yeah,
completely going in there blind, that's the only reason it's in there. I think because it's just a bit odd. But then I get the scene, because you want people to go, oh, I kind of know where I am in history now, but I don't get why they needed to show Napoleon there.
no.
It was just a bit, you why is he even there? It's like, yeah, it's a bit odd.
As soon
It's
as
like
I
going
saw
on.
him, I
Yeah.
got this whole Forrest Gump vibe. I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. So this man has influenced history for 2 centuries, three, gone on three, however many
Mhm.
centuries. But you have to put him there for all of his accomplishments. You had to throw one more in or a few more in.
Yeah.
And that's what turned me off. That scene, right? That is what turned me off this entire film right away.
Yeah. It was even when he was like, they were having their political discussions, he was there. he overheard it. He was there for every moment, and it was just like, yeah, he
No,
wouldn't have been. He just kind of, yeah, it's
no,
yeah. But it's I don't. I know Ridley Scott's got this 4 hour plus version in the in on Apple Plus coming, but I don't get how they're going to utilize his whole life achievements of, like, what he did to commerce, education, and all that. Because I think for the average viewer, you don't really want to see that, but that builds up the character of Napoleon. That
it does.
he was a great campaign leader and strategist in that kind of field, but he also knew what he was doing outside it. He knew his history of, like, what the Romans did and how that the law could have worked in, like, France afterwards. But that builds the character up, not this. I'm going to have some. Not. I wouldn't even like. It would have been better if it was a sexual perversion between them both. Like, there was a little bit of an instance, but they don't explain it. That when she gets released from prison, and
Mhm.
the first time they meet, her dress is off her shoulder, isn't it? What, not very cool at the time, but they don't explain that. It should have explained that. Well, she did what she needed to do to survive. She lost her husband. She's literally penniless, near enough, but she did what she did to survive at that time, and she, I say, opened up to
Mhm.
many men to kind of get back into a prominent position. Now, they didn't do that. They just had this weird, "Are you looking at me?" "No, I'm not looking at you. Don't tell me your name." But then I was like, okay, let's go into that kind of, I don't know, like 50 Shades of Grey perversion. Let's do it then. Let's make him completely obsessed, and she can literally wrap him around his little finger. But first of all, they do is, the first thing is she's having an affair. So she doesn't love him. She doesn't care anything about him. And then he comes back, and then they have this weird, "You're nothing with me" scene. Tell me that. And he's sobbing, and he makes him look like a really weak individual. And I'm like, what are you doing? Okay, are you going to go in? Are you now going to go into this perversion? No, because she still doesn't really like it. It comes across that she doesn't like him. And all that, he comes in, he gets a bit horny, comes in, does his rabbit act, and then goes off. And it's just a bit, okay, there's no interacting with you, being romantic in the dialogue, and your sex scenes and kind
It
of
didn't
perversion
work.
is, it just doesn't work. It just makes it go, you're not going full in, and you're either or not. And it's just a bit, yeah, it's a bit odd. It's
It didn't work because he's ordering her to tell
mm,
him that she's nothing without him, and how quickly she turned that on him,
mm,
and then had him it didn't fit, it didn't feel organic. I
no,
don't think it was down to the actors, although I don't know, it was, again, I keep going back to the writing, and I haven't used this word yet, but the dialogue, the writing
yeah,
and the dialogue, which are two sort of separate things, but the phrasing and the words, and it just, it didn't mesh. Like,
no,
I didn't feel a relationship between
no.
them at all.
I must say, I've had to watch 50 Shades of Grey, and off scene they didn't like each other, and that came across on this, like, when you watch the movie, like, they're supposed to have this sexual adventure together, and they just don't look like they're into it because they don't like each other
Yeah.
offset. It felt like that. It felt like they just didn't have a connection at all, and it just was a bit like, you look at every way she looks at him, it's a bit odd. And I don't know if I know he's known for being a bit over the top on set, but it just felt a bit, it just didn't, they didn't have that chemistry together. But then the dialogue was so weird, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. I think if any actor or actress was in that part with the dialogue, and they were trying to be emotionally connected, the dialogue just pushed you away from that so
Yeah.
heavily. And yeah, it's just because I would have rather had snippets of the campaigns, of like 2 minutes campaign, jump over why it's happening, and then this epic love story. That would have been made more sense to me of what this kind of jump. It would
Yeah.
have been more better if they kind of went, time jump, this is how he met, the coronation, and then a time jump. But they just went kind of like little snippets of fruit, like, and trying to tell his whole life story, but not tell it. And it's
without a
just a bit,
theme.
yeah,
Like if they
yes,
had used his romance as the theme, I like your idea. Use that romance, show the snippets of everything else that's happening on the battlefield and
mm,
as he's rising to power, it would have felt unifying, but the movie was just bits and pieces. There are
yeah,
other films where you so quickly buy the relationship between two characters. Like
yeah.
I'm a softie, and this time of year is my time of year to watch Love Actually. I do. I love the film, and I love every relationship in that film. Think about all the twists and turns in that film, but I buy those connections. I really do. In this, I didn't buy the connect. I was like, why is he obsessed?
Yeah.
It can't just be the sex because okay,
Yeah.
for what was shown, you're not having romantic
No.
sex. It's very animalistic. It's very
Yeah.
different.
But
And
it's not
and what
even like
is
it was. It would have been like at the I say like it was him just going in, just humping every time. It would have been more interesting, like if they were going to play that as it that he's just solely I need an heir and I don't like you. That's all you're here. You're here for my. You're here as a womb, and that's it. I'm walking in, doing my business, and then I'm back to my campaigns or political sphere. And then she was like, oh, what, like really pissed off with him every time. That would have made more sense than him being head over heels obsessed with her and then not making love to her.
Yep. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And so much is made from the history, what we know about Napoleon. A lot of what we know
Mm.
about Napoleon's personal life is because he was a letter writer and he
Yeah.
wanted her to write letters to him and she didn't. And but what was he saying in those letters? Like we have those letters. We could have used those letters. The writers could have used those letters
Mm.
to describe his feelings for her. And there's one comment in the movie. Well, there's the scene with his mother, encouraging him to sleep with the younger person to
Oh,
see,
yeah. Yeah.
who is at fault in not bearing a
Mm.
child here. And there's one other comment between him and his brother about mother.
Mm.
Um, reading the Andrew Roberts book, I don't know that I got a strange relationship between him and his mother. Maybe
No,
I
I
thought
did.
that was
I did.
kind
I
of
didn't even get
odd
the
that
point why they even introduced the mother, and it was all
exactly.
because it could have been anyone who said, "Look, have this off with this." I'm guessing she was supposed to portray a whore, like
Yeah,
that, and just say like, "Go off with her." Like there was the mother scenes were pointless. It wasn't up in the game of the movie at all. It was just like because the first intro, oh, who's Josephine? Oh, hi, that's it. And the next scene is literally there's something wrong with your missus. I've got go in the other room, get your end away. That's a bit. It's
it
yeah,
didn't
it's
help
just
to explain like the odd portrayal of
no.
that relationship. Like it didn't. It
But,
definitely
but
didn't.
that's it. Like we're gonna go a bit more history now. Let's go. But it didn't portray like the whole movie didn't like give you a feeling of why anything was happening. It was just like
No,
it was a journey of a person through their life because they did things.
and let's
There
check the
wasn't
box.
there wasn't a reason to it. It was like the first bit was the French Revolution. But why did that happen? You just literally okay. You can have a little bit of backstory, but that's why they didn't have Louis getting his head cut off. It was Marie Antoinette because if it's Louis, it just looks like a man going up there. Nobody would understand unless they said death to the king or whatever. But
Hmm.
with having Marie Antoinette, it's visually you can see. Oh, it must be her. They without saying
You
it.
know who that
So
is. You
yeah,
know
you
who
know
that
who
is.
that is. But it's just it's
Now,
it's a thing.
positive. I did like that scene. I liked how that was shot.
Mm,
Um, they got the costumes. I think they did well on costumes. So I'll give them a positive for that.
yeah, if I had to go, like, yeah, if the positives are costume design and the cinematography when the battles are have the probably the ice battle is the best, and the brutality of
Yes,
certain scenes. And I like if you like horses, you're gonna see a lot of dead horses.
did
Now I
see a lot
like
of
that,
things.
but like the when I it wouldn't have happened, but it was good visually of when the cannonball goes into the mid range of the horse
The
and literally
exploding
gets
horse.
the
Yes.
exploding. Yeah, exactly. I thought that was good. And then when the horses are falling into the ice and they shot it underneath,
Yes.
beautiful, beautifully shot, great idea, and yeah, it worked really well, you know. But apart from those kind of moments, that's it, and that's what draws the movie right down because you're here for the epic story of Napoleon, and you don't get it. You just get a guy that goes around and like and just yeah, just goes to places. But why he's there, you have no idea. And what is he there like to the French people? You have no idea. Now,
Yeah.
if anybody's ever been to Paris and been to Napoleon's tomb, they revere, they literally adore this guy. Like he in France, he's literally umo numo, let's say. Like, and what his achievements are, and when you learn about the history of Napoleon, what he does, it's like, okay, he's epic. Yeah, he was on the losing side. Now, the French probably don't like anybody saying that because of what they, you know, what he did in that I suppose short pace at the time, to,
Hmm.
like for the French people. But he still was on the losing side. But in this, you don't get that at all. You don't
No.
get any notion of how the French loved him and how the rest of Europe literally were two fingers up, we're going to take you out. Because the reason, like the British, all the Austrian, Russians, and all that, like anyone with like the Dutch, what isn't even mentioned on this, the Spanish, not even
The
mentioned,
Americans,
the
huge piece
Americans,
there, which
yeah,
we'll get into.
because the whole point of this is Louis screwed up by giving you, like you Americans, the money
The
for
boats.
the American Revolution,
Yep.
and then when it happened, then the overthrowing in France, everybody got scared that this is going to happen to them, and we need to put Louis back on the throne, and that's why everybody in Europe went boom to Napoleon because they didn't want to see their country happen to what happened in the United States, and that's the major reason of like why everybody hated him. And he was too big. He was trying to claim back parts of historical land and the whole point when they had that scene when they don't explain it when he's looking at the Sphinx.
Hmm.
Is it no? He's not. Is it? Yeah, Sphinx. Yeah, looking at the
Yeah,
Sphinx.
the Sphinx.
And then but there's no reason. It doesn't tell you why he's there. It just looks like he's on a holiday because he goes and then goes to the tomb and there's a mummy there and then he puts his hand on it and it falls on. But the reason he's there is to blockade the British through India to get that thing. So he got in, got the Ottomans done, but then it doesn't explain the next bit is the Battle of the Nile with Nelson, and it's just like, why wouldn't you explain the next bit? You know, you've got Napoleon, but you've got other massive people in this time era that are big historical characters, and you don't even mention them. And it's like you have the like that whole thing. The Battle of the Nile should have been a big part after that. That you know your whole fleet got destroyed, and there's a little snippet of him when he marks out Waterloo on the map. What was stupid
Yeah.
is he says, "Oh, the British don't know how to fight on land," and I was like, "You should have then gave a reference of not the British can't fight on land." It goes, "We can fight the British on land because look what they did to us when they're at sea. We can't, you know, we haven't got a fleet anymore." They don't mention anything, and it's just a
No.
bit. Why wouldn't you give him his defeats as well as his victories? Because it would have made more sense of like he was really good at this, but when he tried to do other things, he did get his ass whipped a lot of the time. And it would have been, you know, it would have been good of like him going. These victories would have made more of like a prominent thing. Like at the end, all I got from Napoleon in history is he's a mass murderer because he killed 300, was it 3
I
million
hated
French.
that.
I
I
hate it. I absolutely, I was
hated
like,
that ending because and when I saw that come up on the screen, um, and my husband really actually he really enjoyed the movie. He
mm,
did. He's not a history person. He and I very rarely find a movie we want to see together, but this was one. He loved it, and I respect that. But when that came up on the screen, and I'm referring to a scene where each battle is shown and the number of lives lost in each
mm,
battle, um, I kind of shouted a little loudly. I said, but that is war. And any general, forget about emperor, any general who has served 20, 30, 40 years is going to have deaths attributed.
oh
Okay.
yeah.
Why don't we look at, if you're going to, if you're going to say that 3 million are attributed to Napoleon as emperor, then I guess you have to look at Abraham Lincoln and say all the millions who were killed in the American Civil War are all attributed to him because
Mm.
he was the leader of the United States.
But
Like,
yeah, but the way they would have done it in this movie, Abraham Lincoln wouldn't have achieved anything because
oh no,
what did Napoleon achieve in this movie?
he died. He fell off a chair. He fell off a chair and he killed 3 million people.
That's it.
I
And it's bizarre. It would be like telling. It
absolutely
would be telling
hated
like.
that.
It would have been like telling either like a George Washington story, Abraham Lincoln. Let's go like that way. And literally, he like it would have gone. Abraham Lincoln was annoyed with the southern states and then invaded, and then they shot him, and these people died. That's
Yeah,
end of story. That would be it. There wasn't any, because
take
this
your
doesn't tell you
most
the political gain, the conclusion to it,
nope, just
the
numbers.
other, yeah, it's just literally a number. And I was like,
I
I
hated
was, yeah,
that. The movie did not tick me off
mm,
until that final screen.
yeah,
And again, any successful general, the greatest commanders in the history of the world will have those numbers as well as the greatest tyrants. Okay, well the greatest tyrants are going to have 20 million, 40 million. But I don't what was the point of that screen? I just I no.
I thought when they started the text, I was like, but also he achieved this, and then it
Yes,
would have gone on to his achievements.
a
Like, yeah,
school
this what
system,
happened, but this is what
improved
happened. Yeah,
infrastructure, cleaner water, all
mm,
the things that he put in place
yeah,
because he was not just driven by power and ego. And even if he was, his accomplishments were more than those
yeah.
accomplishments on the battlefield.
But I did
100%.
hear, I read one review after, and it was like it's very pro British. And then I watched it, and I was
Mm,
like, it's not pro anything.
it's not
It's
the
not pro
flesh.
the British. It's not pro the Austrians, the Parisians, the Russians. Definitely not the French. It's not pro anyone because it doesn't give this. Like if they went on to like this, oh, he was a narcissist and he got his comings at the end, and the British, did what they did because they were saving Europe. That's a story. This, it just didn't even get there. And it's
No.
just it's just a bit weird. But I think the disillusion of that is because they break up the history too much of like, it feels like 6 months because the whole, like, if you go by the actual, the history of Napoleon, of his coming, it's literally by chance, near enough. Him coming from Corsica because he is not a native Frenchman. He's not very liked. He's got a weird accent. He's got like that. So he has to push himself forward. And then you've got the Josephine love story, the love of the decades. But even to her, she's from the Caribbean. And then she come over, and it is known that she didn't have any teeth. She had like an
She
animal
had
teeth. They had
no
about,
teeth. I
yeah,
know.
because of sugar. And she's literally, and that's why everybody was like, I know you said her, like her age was like, hold it, she's older. It's because she looked hagged, and everybody's like, I know it's the Caribbean weather. That's what they acclimatized it to in the sugar. And I'm like, but you're not doing any of this. And it was like the bit that like added things, and it might tick some boxes, is her, I guess, in Lady in Waiting, handmaid, I'm
Her
guessing,
maid, yeah,
is
her handmaid.
has a Caribbean accent and she's black. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was like, and then my girlfriend, yeah, but they came to Caribbean. I went, yeah, I understand. There's going to be, at that point of history, there are going to be people from Africa and from the Caribbean taken over into Europe. I went, but they're minor, and they're always going to be, they're not going to be like, let's be thing, they're not going to be front of house. They're going to be hidden away. And even if they come up, they're there to entertain. They're there to be a spectacle because nobody's ever seen it. And there's certain points in this that there was, I think it was it a, I can't remember, I can't remember the what officer, whatever,
When he
what
said
where
that
he comes
I've
from.
taken a lover and it's your
Yeah,
wife's
but
handmaid, and that's how
he
I
goes
got
like,
all the information because she wrote me letters. Could she be writing letters?
no, but you got that, and I was like, what? You've just ticked a box. But then they've got a little snippet of when a black officer comes in, and I'm like, oh my, you wouldn't have a black officer. And then at the end, when they made a midshipman, a little black midshipman, he was literally, I was like, oh my, you've literally just gone off history, and you just gone attack. It's like they've gone, we just need minor characters to get a tax relief. And I'm like, what? But it took you out of the environment because but then it was because if they're going to do that, at least have black soldiers, different groups of soldiers. Like, why wouldn't you have, Indian soldiers, like that, Ottoman, like, soldiers come on and actually show a proper tournament of that? But they didn't. They just went, no, we're just going to have 3 or 4, and then there's going to be minor characters, so we can get tick box. And I was like, oh, what are you doing? And it just took me out that historical element that wasn't there in the story when I tell him, and it just made me go, oh, that's a shame. You just did that to tick a box, because there
Mhm.
was no need for it, because you could have told other, if you're going to go down that route, you could have told more interesting stories about that kind of development, but they didn't. So it was just a bit, they were the bits that kind of, I was just like, okay, that was a bit stupid, move on, because literally every single character has like a couple of lines, and they're just a tick. Oh look, nobody can have a go at us at the moment because we're in like the late part of the 18th century going into the 19th, and yeah, Europe isn't like that, but nobody will know. It's like, what
Well,
are
can
you
I tell you what
doing?
else took me out of the element in the time period? How do you feel about the musical choices in this film?
Yeah, I don't know if they, I haven't done a research, I don't know if they were like old songs from that time period, and then they kind of jazzed it up. That's the only way I
Yeah,
can feel like I
just
made it a bit
didn't
modern.
fit.
And I'm like, that's a bit, it's not fitting. It's like I would have rather had some really deep classical moments, of old composers, and then set for they did these things like the bit when um they're the royalists, I suppose, are back and they're marching on Napoleon's guard, and he opens fire with his artillery. And that music just before that, I was like, that's a bit odd to have like this really kind of joyful, kind
It
of
was
playful music.
very, yeah, it didn't fit. And think about how a film set in this time period could have benefited from the music of the period. This is an amazing time for composers, for
Mm,
classical composers. Um, we could have had it didn't feel, it just didn't feel like it fit. I'll have to go back and actually look at the score and see if to your point, if these are songs from that time. I was pulled out at least a couple
yeah,
of times, like pulled out of the scene because the music did not fit.
yeah.
It just didn't fit, and I'm thinking, who made this choice? And there are so many other films where the music really adds to the scenery, I kind of sometimes look at the absence of music as also adding, lending to the scene where quietness is important. But I, made my little list of pros and cons here, and the music was not a
Mm.
plus.
Well, I did like the coronation street, and I'm guessing you saw Charles's coronation,
Yes.
and the music in the back,
Yes.
even when you're away, is like this epic.
Zadok the
You've
priest.
you're literally like, oh, this is guys, he's the man. It's like really like epic, classical, back in the, back from times are gone. And it's literally, you're like, whoa, it's really good. But even that scene, like, they don't have that moment of like, you feel impactful just by the music, because it's just, again, it's just a scene. It's not like he like the possession through like the centrality alley, like passageway. It should have been epic in approaching, but it's nothing. It's just literally
Mhm.
I'm doing the next scene, and it's just it's yeah, everything wasn't impactful, even to like the, the bits in the ice when they kind of slowed it down with the music and they did the slow mo. That it just didn't have the impact. It wasn't like, you know, you felt, oh, I felt sorry for these guys because they got trapped. You know, they went the wrong way in the retreat, like cleverness, and even that whole thing, even like history, like Napoleon was clever to what he did and like how we organized these troops to make them when he knew at a certain point they needed to retreat, he shot them off over the ice. That it just looks like a couple of people ran away and they went the wrong way, and there wasn't a strategic advantage. Like, he purposely did it. It was just like his hand movements every
I think
time.
you had
There
to know the
wasn't
history to appreciate
yeah,
that scene, like, because I
but
knew
they
what was
could,
coming, but I
yeah.
wonder, like, and I didn't ask my husband, like, "Did you know that was coming, and what did you think was coming?"
Hmm,
Because here's what I would have liked from that scene. I would have liked to have seen it from the perspective of the enemy, because we were seeing it from the perspective of Napoleon and his
hmm.
troops looking down on them. I would have liked, I just we didn't see enough of the surprise, the terror, the whatever of realizing what was happening around you. And
No, there was a
we
bit of
saw it
the
from the
panic
wrong perspective.
of when you kind of the guy figured out he was on the ice and kind of moved the snow away, and he
Mhm.
realized he was on the ice, and there was a bit of panic, but then they skipped
Mhm.
but straight on. It was like that. It's a bit odd, but yeah,
No
there
time.
was just a
They were
yeah,
racing.
yeah, yeah, but there was even that, like I'm talking about, like in panicking, like the weird bit. You like Napoleon, even when he got high up, and you're thinking at the time scale after he's a veteran, he like a soldier, yeah.
Mhm.
And then that scene at the beginning when he's shaking, I just didn't get that because I'm like they're making out like he's like a young officer that this is his first battle, and he's like shaking out and he's like that, and I'm like, but he's not.
He's not. He's
He's
worked his
not.
way up by
Yeah,
that point.
yeah. He's a professional soldier, and he's got got into the streams to get where he's supposed to be, and it's just a bit. Again, I'm gonna say it odd. It's
So
just like everything.
when he
Yeah.
reaches into the
Mm.
horse's carcass and pulls out
Oh
the
yeah.
cannonball, I thought we were gonna see that cannonball again. Did I miss
Mm.
it or did we never see he said,
No,
"Give
never
this
see
to
it
our
again.
mother," and then
Yeah.
we never saw the cannonball again, and I thought,
But
"Okay,
that's
that
it.
was
There
a
was so
great
many
loss."
references that you're gonna go, oh, they're gonna show
Yeah,
us this next because they said this, and then that never happened.
it never
Yeah,
happened.
it's just like I don't get
Maybe it's in the
where.
director's cut.
Yeah, but I don't. That's what I'm saying. Like director's cut, I can't see a 4-hour movie. It's going to flesh out this development, because if it was there and it's been terribly edited, like some weird way, that movie is still going to be the same. It's still just going to be
Yeah,
drawn out that because they can't. They're not going to explain this the Spanish, the Dutch in it. They're not going to explain the Armada, Nelson, Trafalgar, and then the reach to like the Waterloo, like that whole campaigns aren't going to be
it
in
was
there
so
because it
short.
would be like a 6-hour movie.
It would
And
have
it's
to
just,
be.
yeah. And it's just like the political aspect of it isn't going to be because they're not going to go and then show, well, the British are doing this at the moment, and that's why they're not getting so involved. And then they're leaving it to the Austrians and the Russians. Like what's happening in the Scandinavia. They don't explain like that. None of it spoken about. That's what I'm saying.
No.
Like every chess piece, what was on the board has literally been wiped, and it's like two people. Like it's just a bit odd.
Yeah.
It's just because they don't explain, about the Dutch, like what Napoleon was trying to do there, and like why the treaty broke down, and it's just like, and why he's doing his next thing because he just does it, and like like even when he meets Alexander, he's like, then he betrays him because he just does, and it's just like there are political reasons behind it, and like yeah, and it was mostly because the British could give better trade. and that's what he tried to do a continental blockade to. And it's just like, you know, he wanted like a trade with United States. United States wanted to trade with us, and it was like that. So it's all that historical missteps that they could have, like, why didn't you introduce the Americas? Why didn't you have a brief conversation about the trade there? It's
Just
just a bit odd.
one word, just one phrase showing how, you know, Napoleon's decision making leading up to Waterloo could not possibly have avoided the fact that Britain was fighting a war here at the
Mm.
same time.
Yeah, there's
1812 to 1814, right? They were here. And the fact that Britain had burned the capital of the United States during the War of 1812, and but for a little teeny tiny fort right across from where I grew up in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, saved the United States colonies. We were so on the brink of kind of going back to being British again. Um, that has to have played into his decision making to,
oh yeah,
stand up against Britain. Hey, Britain's engaged elsewhere. They've got half their fleet across the pond. Oh, by the way, um, and we do have prior relationships with the United States, having sent Lafayette over here during the American Revolution, having sent part of the fleet to help us really put the finishing touches on the revolution, having sold us the Louisiana Purchase. We have relationships. Um, that none of that was there. When are they
no.
going to at least
But
acknowledge with
they
one
didn't
word?
but
One
say
word.
they didn't connect any reasons between the countries. Like I'm saying, if they were going to
No.
like focus on Austria, then you tell us why Austria hate the French. You tell us why the Russians hate the French. You're not telling us like that. It would have been like they didn't go to like why the Dutch? Why didn't then they go into Spain? Like this is all missing. Like why? Like there's at the moment at this point, like the French are bleeding money because nobody trusts them, but they want to trade, and the only way they can do that is to stop the British fleet. But they don't have the fleet to do the British. But when the 1812 war starts, we're over there now.
Yep.
Half the fleet is over there, and the rest are in India. Yeah, and then we've got a minor fleet that they underestimated, straight away. And then they could explain, we did this, we're going to beat them. And
Explain
then
that
at the
as an
Battle of the
opportunity.
Nile is
Hmm.
the biggest one, is when that happens and Nelson destroys the fleet, is explain the aftermath of that. Because then it makes more sense of why people then started trying to undermine Napoleon,
Yep.
and then he gets his first exile. It doesn't get that because when they just exile him, it's because he went to war, he won, but he lost a lot of troops, and you're like, but what? That doesn't make sense. It's like because they would have just been to them the troops. They wouldn't have cared that
Exactly.
kind of high up. That would like the political sphere in France. They wouldn't have cared what the pleb, I suppose you would call
The
him, would
cost
have
of
said.
war.
Yeah, the
Hmm.
cost of war. It was like we're trying to beat the British, the Russians, and the Austrians, and everybody wouldn't even fine with it. We're going to get back our Dutch territories. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But none of it was there. It was, yeah, it was, yeah, it just missed the opportunity of telling you're either going to do a, a land grab story, a romance story, or like as you say, like a political, or like we're going to screw over the British and we're going to do it this way. But it was nothing like there was a bit of, oh, the British hasn't got any honor, and that's the only thing about dishing the British. And I was like, they hate us. Like they literally everybody in Europe hate us, but they fear us because we out of our navy. So they're like, I'm like, you're gonna have not nastier things to say. Then they don't have any honor, and they have a little giggle about it. It's just a bit. It's just a
Yeah,
bit
I
odd.
didn't even get that. I mean, I was like,
No,
okay, that doesn't make any sense. It just didn't.
no,
It didn't make any sense.
no.
The even like when you look at e- the times when there were these sit downs with leaders, from other parts of the world, and the conversations were so short and stunted
Mm,
and made no sense. You you didn't feel like you were part of a larger world. You
No.
felt like in this film that these were just temporal figures, that this was like, okay, this here's this guy here, and here's this guy from Austria, and here's this guy from Russia, and here,
Well, yeah, they
you
did
didn't
that with
feel
the
like
guy.
they were just,
They had an ambassador, didn't they, Austria, and he shows up twice.
yeah,
And the first time, well, he speaks English. I guess in the real way, he's supposed to speak French,
yeah,
and then he speaks German. Um, and I'm like, but then you don't do anything with the information. They could have gone and like him going to the like
yeah.
some general in Austria and relaying the message, and them getting really pissed off with like the replies and all that. It's just odd. Like there's that bit when he Napoleon gets really like he wouldn't have done it. He got like really angry and then marched up to the ambassador of Britain and then kind of just screamed at him and told him, we're at war, you like arrogant things. And the guy had like then the British reply was, oh, he hasn't got any manners or something like to that thing. And I'm like, what are you doing? It's like you could have made that even that speech of him declaring war to the British, through the ambassador, like a really epic thing. Now, it wouldn't have been true to history, but at
Correct.
least it would have made it kind of assured to how Napoleon would have addressed somebody else, of
Hmm.
like that, his mannerisms. But he didn't. He just kind of went off the handle and went, yeah, we're going to go to war then, because you don't respect me as the, unelected, official now emperor. And it's just like, what are you, what? It's just, I don't get it. It's like that after that, it's like every time he went to war, it's because people just didn't respect him. I'm like, that's not what happened.
No,
And then, yeah,
no, it's oversimplification, and
yeah.
it's buying into. Now, what I did think the film did well. Are we in history now? Are we in
Go
the
on, we're in
history
history.
section?
We're in the history.
We're in
We're
the.
in there.
I think what the film did well in the bits and pieces was to highlight the quote tabloid press, and how the press and the media around the world characterized or
Yes.
caricatured Napoleon. So everything from the affairs that Josephine was having and how they were handled in the French newspapers, to the way that other countries, eventually depicted
I
him
don't know,
as
show it the
wrong.
London Times or something, wasn't it? I think one of them said.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think that was I think that was done well, because that is the way he was charactered. So he was charactered as, this guy who would just stomp off in a huff,
Yeah.
or, this little corporal who would, that I think I give the film credit for that. And that was, also important at the time, to how we even saw him throughout history. It really is only in the last, I don't know, 10 or 20 years where the world does understand that that was an incorrect portrayal of him,
Mm.
right? I think it's only now, at least again in the American educational system, where that is corrected and that is recognized as, no, that's kind of the media, that's the nature of the tabloids,
Well,
that's
it's propaganda, isn't it, through the media?
propaganda, the
But they were
good
all
old propaganda.
mostly probably all state owned by somebody who was a lord or something, in the respective countries, and like, yeah, they got a political gain. They like no control. They can say what they kind of want. It's bad, but
Exactly.
yeah,
I think it also, so I think it captured in a good way the total chaos after the French Revolution. Because the way we compare the American Revolution here to the French Revolution, um, is sometimes conflated, that, hey, the Enlightenment happened, and hey, everyone wanted to, you know, work toward, egalitarianism and quote democracy, whatever that is, and France was doing it and the United States was doing it. No, we were doing it in two very different ways. And what happened in the States, for right or for wrong, those, white males who put together the structure of our government, they had a plan. They knew before they went into the revolution that they needed a plan. And it was a struggle to put it together, and it was only perfected after the Civil War. Really and truly, and it's highlighted in Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, is really talking about perfecting the Union. So it took that long, but the founding fathers and our leaders, and those who study history, know that there had to be a plan. I think what this film captured, and it's no slight to the French. It is not. I don't. see it, and I hope, it shouldn't be taken as an insult to the French that they had a revolution without a plan. They had it was total chaos. It was one idea of leadership after another, and it was just total mayhem. I think this film captured that. So
But they
from
don't.
from
But even when they did that, they didn't. They just made it look like it was a chaos all the way through. Like Napoleon just let that chaos continue. Everybody just let it continue. Like when they kind of there's that political uprisal, like in that. I'm guessing their kind of parliament building. I'm guessing what they're
Mhm.
trying to explain, and everybody just runs after each other. But then it's not addressed that kind of calm down, because of Napoleon, because of what he put in place. Yeah, yeah, it was a bit of a false rule, but he
Not
still
because
got
he
him.
shut the
Yeah,
door, but
yeah,
because he put some I
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. He just puts, thought to it. This is what we do. It might be heavy-handed, but it's going to work for now. And we can, address. But it wasn't. It didn't
It
show that.
was
It, as I
oversimplified.
said, if you're French, you're going to hate this because it just makes every aspect of, you know, we just want to cut off heads, and then what we're going to do next, I don't know. Let's piss off the British, and then what we're going to do, well, we just don't know. It's that's what it feels like. It's just like that. Like even when Napoleon does his campaigns, he does it just because, oh, I can send my soldiers that way, and that's it. And it's just a bit, yeah. It's just, yeah. There's no plan to the aftermath of the revolution, but there in this, it couldn't have been because the there's no gap between the space. It's literally, was it the was 1797 or something like that? I think it was. Then it went straight in, and the next minute you're 30 minutes in the movie, and now it's 1812, and there's nothing in that period to show that anything happened of any note. It's
No,
just
it's a total
literally.
race. It's
Mm,
a race to check off the next important event in
yeah,
history
but
while
then the
also missing important events in
Yeah,
history.
exactly. Yeah, like the ones that are known, you're kind of skipping over to show these kind of really good cinematography bits. And that's why I say, like, it felt like Ridley Scott wanted. I really want the ice battle because that's very good, and that's
Yeah.
that is probably the best bit in the whole movie. But then just do the campaigns then, if you want to do it, or just do one
Just
campaign
one or two.
and just
Yeah.
one and end it, and then have dialogue. I would have been happy with a history dialogue of things, not that look at the death rate. That Napoleon died on such and such day. Blah 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 blah. It would have been. It'd have been more interesting. And I'll say that's why I think a flashback would have been better because it even could have
I
started
think
off with the
so.
flashback of his death and the
Yeah.
British arguing that you cannot have Napoleon on his tomb. You can't have. He has to be
Right.
Napoleon Bonaparte, and it would have been like interesting of like why, and then they could have gone back in time and and then got into that whole point. If he's known as Napoleon, when he signs it, it's Napoleon. And that reason why that is because kings do that.
He's
You
not an
don't have to know,
aristocrat.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he's not an aristocrat, so
Or
he's not allowed
nobility.
to
Nobility.
in the nobility of Europe at the time, and it would have been more interesting to do that. But it's just a missed opportunity. It feels like they had a script and then they just didn't know. Well, okay, we're just going to go to A to B. It's just, yeah, it's things. But yeah, one thing we haven't talked about, I'm going to go for it, is Waterloo. Let's go for Waterloo. That's the ending. Now, I thought the lead up, because I didn't, even though there were scenes that were really drawn out and I wasn't needed, it felt like when we got to Waterloo, that could have been another hour.
Yeah.
I didn't felt
Hmm.
numb. I didn't feel like um oh, they just need to finish this movie now. I felt we're going to see more now. We're going to get to see, this is going to be it. This is going to be the story of the movie. What did you think of Waterloo?
Well, I
or
I
the
feel exactly the same way. I didn't feel like the movie was over long. Like even though it was that long because I felt like we were racing and I thought we were racing to either Waterloo or some big revelations during
Mm.
his final exile, right? Some kind of reflection or whatever. And when we got to Waterloo, okay, credit to Rupert Everett I thought he did a good job there. I thought his acting was good. Um, but what I wanted to see, okay, I understand the weather situation. And perhaps that was an attempt to be historically accurate. And the film overall was I don't want to say it's dark. It was filtered. The entire film was filtered, right?
Yeah.
I
But I've
didn't.
actually this background, I've actually lightened it up because it was so blue, it made everything look
Yes.
really cold. And then you have these other scenes that if I forgot the thing, it's just literally like bright yellow. It was like yellow or blue, yellow or blue. It was like, yeah,
Yes.
it was, yeah.
So I wanted to feel we got to Waterloo. I wanted to feel more of an expanse. I wanted to feel more of a convert. I get it. And it looked nice, but it was over before it started. It
For a
was
battle
another.
that nearly took 12 hours, yeah, it was over in like 30 minutes
I
again.
wanted to
Again,
see
it was
different
rushed.
parts of the battle. And not
But
just because I'm an artillery geek,
mm.
okay? And we're going to get into that. I do have a note here on artillery. Um I wanted to see more of the mechanics around the battle. I didn't just want to see the shot
it
through his hat.
yeah,
The shot through
yeah,
his hat. What
yeah.
the
That was a bit stupid, especially as I've not been long ago since they actually sold his hat.
I
It doesn't have
wanted
a
to
shot.
see him giving orders. I wanted to see him changing tactics. I wanted to
Mm.
see his calculus during the
Well,
battle. A-
yeah,
And
it did really. I must say, to when they
well
got
done.
to when it got to Waterloo, I got slightly annoyed, only because I know I know what actually kind of happened. I'm not a proper historian about it, but I know the lead up to it. And when he rolls out that map and
And
he
he
goes,
says, "We're gonna be
and he
here."
yeah, but he goes, I think it's like they've got 100,000, they've got 75,000, they've got another 100,000, and us with our 120,000, and we'll meet them here. And he stamps down Waterloo. That I was like, oh, you're literally not going to do his. You're literally
You
go off
didn't
history
decide that.
straight away.
You didn't decide.
Yeah,
You didn't
it's because,
say, "Here's where it's
but
gonna
why?
happen."
But why didn't they show the start of it of him beating like he had the upper hand because he just literally beat the Prussians. He literally near enough destroyed their army. What his mistake was, he didn't realize they had 40,000 in reserve.
They had reserves,
So
yeah.
so when he then went, I'm chasing down Wellington, and then Wellington went, oh, they're 48 hours away. If we hold our ground here, hold it, I've got a ridge, the artillery can't get me. Great, we'll stay here and hold out. And there's a farm there. We need to get that farm building, take the hamlet and that chateau. And literally, and that's the bit that pissed me off, because when they did the landscape, I was like,
Ugh.
where's the
Where's
farm
the
building?
farm?
Where
Oh,
are the strategic positions that are known in history that they had to hold? And that's why Napoleon got so arrogant, because he was trying to take three positions at once and thought he overplayed his hand. And I was like, it's not showing that. It's literally like the first bit is you have the rain. Okay, there was rain. I think they went a bit over the top with the rain, because if it was that heavy, both sides would have waited and waited until it dried
artillery
out.
cannot
Yeah.
move in that kind of sludge. No, you can't.
But yeah, it annoyed me. I like probably going to the Waterloo, but that whole um like the you're not going to get any military standoff that back in the day when they literally face off, artillery set up. You think they were there, and then they let themselves get into range of the artillery, and then when they are the French artillery starts, the British artillery doesn't do a thing. Even though in the movie they make out that the French have got them in range. Okay, we're going to ignore the actual artillery aspect of that. But why didn't the British ever fire back? Not once. Not once. You have to watch that. I was like, they've literally not fired back. And I was just like, oh, okay. That's a bit weird. It's like, but then you're in range of a rifleman. Napoleon is in range of a knife rifleman, so them artillery on both sides would have
We're
annihilated every
obviously
fight.
in range.
Literally, I was like, if they're that close, well, like a rifleman can do it. That artillery is going to just literally the first parade, or whoever fires first, everybody's gone. Literally, you're not going to think the ground's going to be ripped up. Everybody just scattered. It would have been ridiculous, but they just like they made out like that, and I was like, wouldn't you have shown these great tacticians like this mental
Yes.
like
Chess.
arithmetic of like
Hmm.
literally of them doing other things like Napoleon doing anything because he thinks he's got the upper hand. He doesn't realize something's happening, like the Parisians are coming, and him going, okay, we're going to send my forces to take the hamlet and the chateau. That buggered up, we're going to keep that. And then the major thing of the farm with the riflemen, like how strategic and important that building was, and then him sending in all like the cavalry, and then underestimating the British squares. It's like they showed that slightly, but they didn't show it as well because the squares were tiny. And I don't know if you ever seen the movie Waterloo,
I
and
have
they do
not.
this
I
flyer.
didn't watch it in studying for this
That
movie. I
it's
purposely
not
didn't.
it's not a great movie, but the actual how the battle is done is literally near enough on point, because how they do it, but they fly over with a helicopter, and they've just showed the grand scale of the whole
Yep.
battlefield of how how it's stretched out. It's not just this like that. The whole battlefield in the movie felt like it was probably the like 400 meters. That was it. And it was
That's
just
yeah.
so it was just very.
It didn't
I was
feel epic.
It is epic because, like, even when the artillery starts, I want to see smoke. I want to be able, like, it felt, I want to be immersed into what a soldier can't see. It fired a bit of smoke, clear. You can just see, like, that everything was clear. And I was like, there is not enough, them cannons going off are gonna go, like, you're not gonna see it a lot. Things like, and it should have just been like a fog for a little while until you're gonna get that, and they should have said like running into smog and all that. Like it should have been very more immersive. Like if you're gonna make out
Seen the
that,
movie Gettysburg? Have
yeah,
you seen
yeah,
the movie Gettysburg?
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like that. Like even like what's I think there was a movie things like the Confederate ones where they send the kids and they lose their boots.
Oh, Newmarket, Battle of Newmarket, Field of
Yeah,
Lost
but
Shoes.
but that is like they're trying to make out on this that it was a very soggy,
Yep.
ground. Then show the horses, show the infantry struggling, with
Well,
their when
even
they get the things.
Henry V. I
Yeah.
know we're in
Yes.
a different century, but the
Mm,
Battle of Agincourt, the way that Ken Branagh shot that with the mud and the muck and the horses getting stuck
mm,
and everyone just kind of fumbling and falling around, and it was more immersive. This was not. It was neither immersive nor grand. It was. I don't know if it was trying to be a little bit of both, but like in Henry V, you felt like you were on the battlefield at
yeah.
Agincourt, and in other films like Gettysburg, Saving Private Ryan, whatever you want to choose, you get the scale. You get that epic
Yeah.
sweeping scale. And this was neither. This
Mm.
was not
But
like what I thought it was leading up to.
no, because it's even like when they didn't mention the Eagles at all throughout this movie, and it was like that was a major pivotal part in that movie. And I was like, oh, if they played on that afterthought, and they showed the eagle falling, that would have been a moment to go, oh, he lost his eagle. Like that would have been a moment people
Yeah,
realized, like this is like
this
like a
is the end.
standard banner. You've got to,
Hmm.
but they didn't show that, and it's just like it felt like like there is things, but it felt like. Uh, Arthur Wellesley just kind of got lucky. There was no like strategic side on him because of like his position or how he got the troops in the right area. And it didn't show Napoleon like how he kind of like overplayed his hand, because all he did was just send his forces in. Like everything was front on. There was no outflanking, and it was like that. Like in like what's that? That is it the King, the Netflix one with Timothy Chalamet,
Oh,
the
I don't
Henry
know.
one. That one they show literally him bring some forces in, to get them. Literally, they're going to be cannon fodder, let's say, but he does it for strategic value to bring out
To
some
flank.
forces. Yeah, so he
Yeah.
can like get his archers and all that. So it shows that, and it's not a big scene, but they show it. It shows that they got to do this, but there's no of reason. Look, go. We need to go to protect our left flank because they're going to get these different positions, and that's where we know the Parisians are coming, and we've got to hold off until they get here. But there's no epic scale to it because like this is like went into the night. This battle went into like they predicted it was probably like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. They think it finished, but there's no grandeur of literally this tactical standoff. Like if you move, we're just going to counter, and then it was just it wasn't. There was nothing like that. It didn't show the brilliance of Napoleon of how he can move his men, and it just didn't show the British side. Didn't show the Dutch at all. It just was like
No.
British against French for some reason. And then
Well,
we got once the Parisians come, we've won, and it was just
why
like.
did why did they that quote from Wellington, Napoleon cannot resist a frontal assault.
Mm,
I
I
disagree. What are you saying? Like, he can't flank? He can flank with the best of them. Like, what are you saying? He can't resist a frontal assault.
But
Okay.
that was true because when they did do okay, you're gonna bring in the cavalry. Yeah, they underestimated, and that was known in history. He didn't believe what the British could do in the squares and in line. He underestimated them. That's fine. But then when when he sends in the infantry, they don't say the point when it's the actual Imperial Guard of what that means to the French. Them breaking down like these are not
That's
conscripts, they're not like a year soldiers. These are the Imperial
they're the
Guard. The
elites.
British actually fear them, and then the British to hold their ground. That was the achievement that they couldn't do, and then that's the fallback of the retreat, and they just don't show that. And I'm like, what is going on? It's like you heard of the Battle of Waterloo, and you heard of squares, and you heard about a cavalry attack on that, and that's all you really see. Because after that, he brings in the infantry. What? Okay, but it's not how it happened. And then the prisoners come, and then that's the battle won. And I'm like, but it's just there's no tactics to it. It's just
And then he's
literally
eating breakfast on a frigate.
and it's just literally it's just bizarre. But then and then it was just like even rushed after that. It was like when he gets like the bit when they're just having that conversation, and like they Arthur goes to like Napoleon, and they're just having this weird a bit like, oh, I understand why the British are so great at sea, because we have hearty breakfasts.
Because
Apparently, that's
breakfast.
that's it. That's it. Hearty
Breakfast.
breakfast, and then they have a bit of back and forth where he believes he's going to go to the Cotswolds, and he's saying how brilliant, lovely the Cotswolds going to be, and then he tells him, "No, you're actually going to be sent 5,000 miles away to
Going
this
out to a
like
little
desolate,
island.
like rock." And then I was like, okay, now we're going to see the end of life. Let's say that, like how,
Reflection.
yeah,
Like,
reflection.
more
He's
letters.
he mistreated, like how the British were, and all, but then they didn't. They had these. I'm guessing they're her daughters, or I don't get the two girls at the end.
One of them is her daughter, or maybe they're both her daughter. I don't know. One is her daughter. I
Yeah,
don't know who the other one was. Maybe it's her daughter, but it's that's where I thought, okay, Waterloo wasn't leading up to the
mm,
big finish. This is the big finish. And he falls
yeah,
off a chair. And even like, how about even a comment on their sword fighting? They were pretending to fight with
yeah.
swords. How about a comment? How about some reflection on my life
No,
and
but
what
then
I've
they do
left?
it onto that. The only bit you got is that he's gone a bit senile. I'm guessing that's what they try to do because he lies. Because the scene where the Russians set fire to Moscow in the movie, and then he says he
He
did
says,
it.
I did that. I
I
did
did
that.
that. Yeah, like,
Who
but
burned
they get,
Moscow? I did
yeah, who,
that.
yeah, and then they go, then they say no, it's known in history that they did it. But like, I'm
Yeah.
guessing because of both, and it's a bit weird. And then he has a self. I'm guessing self reflection. That's the only way to say it, because he's not fit. And then he just boom,
Oop,
and then I'm like boom, and then I'm
pops
like,
off the chair.
oh, is that it? And then of course you get the the next bit is, yeah, he died, and then this is who he killed.
And at that
And
moment,
I'm
my
just,
husband said, "That was a great movie." And I was like,
oh,
"What are you talking about? This is a terrible way to end a movie.
I
Terrible
know
way to end a film."
it
But
was. The thing is, because even if you know snippets about the history of Napoleon, you probably could research one period of time and make an epic movie about that
you
period of
do it
time
for a
if you do it for
lifetime.
his,
You could
yeah.
research the Battle of Waterloo for your entire
Yeah.
lifetime, or
That's say like the
Trafalgar,
the movie of the
Canal.
Waterloo isn't great. It's not a great movie. It's like in a time like, it's probably because it's the budget, but they tried to do it, and it's a bit rushed, but it's an epic battle, like the whole bit. There's a bit drawn out, but the actual movie's Waterloo is so much better this, because you learn about Napoleon more during the battle than you do for this whole movie, even though it's just a battle. And that's it. But yeah, it's just weird. I was just like, oh, like there's other low budget, like
Yep.
like Napoleonic War movies that show you more about Napoleon and not be concentrated on Napoleon. It's even, I gotta say, because I love them. It's the Sharp series. You learn more
Yes,
about
Sean
Napoleon.
Bean is
Yeah,
God. We love
yeah,
Sean
but
Bean.
but you learn more about Napoleon in that, and how the British, they just how they talk about him, and you only see him, I think, once in the whole series. Then you do it, like, more about that of Napoleon than you do of this Napoleon, because this Napoleon is not the Napoleon I've read about, I've seen, I've kind of stood at his tomb, and I've seen, like, it might not be him in the tomb, but that's a whole different story. But you just don't get that feeling of that relationship between the man and who you see on screen, and that's it. And the man of history. And yeah, I know Ridley Scott tried to defend it. He said since his death, there's been one book every week since his death being written about him. And I'm like, well, then pick one,
Yeah,
literally, just pick one and then go with that, because there are better, like, interpretations, false history than you've done here. You've tried to
stick to a
tell,
theme.
yeah, you've tried to tell the correct history, but you've just not executed any element of
Mhm.
it. It's literally like, oh, we got a 5 minute scene, 30 seconds of that is going to be really accurate, and the rest of it we just got to do something, because it's got to be, like, epic. But then it's not an epic movie. That's the problem I felt, because of
Yep.
this jointed with all different scenes. If it was, you came out and you were like, whoa, okay, it's not historical, it's not all that, but that blew me off my seat every moment. It was it had the action scenes were good. The him, how he delivered all his lines were impactful. It felt like he was the emperor. And like how he delivered all his scenes. I would have gone, okay, it's not historical, but I like the movie. Um, but none of it. It just felt completely flat. That's what I'm saying. I
It
didn't
did.
dislike it. I just don't like it, and that's the
I
problem.
think
It's
that's a
like,
good way to put it.
yeah, it's not like I'll go, oh, they did Napoleon rotten, and I really hate it, and I'm really angered. No, I'm not. I'm just like, huh. It's, yeah, and I think we both said, like I said, it's a 4 or 5 out of 10, because it is. It's just like, huh. I don't get what you try to do, and that's what I left it. So it doesn't leave you angry. It just makes you go, well, I don't get where you. I don't get where you went, and I'm still trying to make sense of where you went. You want what you were trying to tell,
You
because
want
yeah,
a
like,
cohesive story. You
mm,
want you want a theme. I mean, compare it to okay, let's compare it to Lincoln. Okay, Lincoln 6, 7 years, right? It's a little bit before the Civil War through Lincoln's assassination, of course. Told the story about the relationships based on the book Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin, who is a fantastic historian. Her book was much more sprawling than the movie, but and I don't know who did the screenplay, but whoever adapted her book to that screenplay did it right. I
Mm.
think stuck to the theme of those relationships, stuck to the theme of the politics, certainly captured bits and pieces of the war, because that's the perspective the movie took, was focused on his relationships, how he built, the team of rivals to get the nation through the Civil War. Take Lawrence of Arabia. There's a sprawling epic. Didn't have as many adventures, of course, as Napoleon, but had a theme, and
Yeah.
really also about his
The
relationships
the
with the,
the
leaders of.
best way you could explain this screenplay, it's felt like somebody read Wikipedia and then wrote a screenplay about
Yes,
Napoleon.
check
That's
the
it.
and made a checklist and went
Yeah,
through.
and
Now,
there's yeah.
I do have some positives though from a historical perspective. Number one, it is a history film, and I got to give it props because there aren't enough historic films out there. Will this make our list when we talk about history films? Not mine. Don't know
No,
about yours.
it's I this I wouldn't, unless I really had nothing. I wouldn't be bothered about watching the 4 hour version now.
No, and
I just was
I
like,
don't
I just
know.
can't see
Maybe
how
in a
to
while
develop
I'll think
it.
about it.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, okay, I'll give it a go. But it won't, if it comes out in like the next year, I'll be like,
Maybe
yeah.
in a while. But
I've
funny
got
thing,
to forget about this movie to want to watch that.
funny
That's it.
thing, Abe brought up The Patriot and Braveheart. He's been listening to
Don't
our
do
other
that.
podcast.
Yeah, you don't really
Um,
know.
but I do give it props for going there with history. Ridley Scott, hey, you gave it a try. The one thing that I thought was well done. So my studies are around um, i- artillery units during the Civil War, and the go-to gun for most Union batteries during the Civil War was the 12-pound Napoleon. That was the gun that they preferred. It was a versatile gun. It was easy to maneuver and move around. I love the scene where Napoleon said, "Shorten those guns, melt them down, make
Oh,
them
when yeah, that
make
was a
them
good. Yeah, I like that.
portable," because that he did that, and
Mm,
it wasn't actually the 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 Napoleons used in the Civil War and that have and later wars in the United States. They weren't named after this Napoleon. They were actually named after Napoleon III, because he refined that gun.
mm.
So Napoleon I wanted artillery to be more mobile, and hey, you got these great big huge howitzer, huge guns, and those are those are great. But what if you want to move them around? Let's make them more movable. And they showed that scene where they melted them down and made them shorter and more movable. So props to Ridley Scott for
But, th- but,
capturing
th-
that in
but I don't know
film.
if that was it, because like if you had, like we said, like the costume design and all the looks and all the elements are historically correct, so they've got somebody there who kind of goes, like I've not like in detail, there probably are mistakes, but that's what I'm saying. I was let down. I was like, it's a missed opportunity because the
To do
historical
more.
elements, it looks like you've got an epic. If you were on set, you're like, wow, this is going to be great. This is literally, look at everyone. Look at all the look at the cannons. Look at that. Look at
Yep.
the bayonets. Everything's on the sabers. The uniforms. Everything looks, it looks right. But then it just kind of like the execution things. But that's what I'm saying, that little moment, ooh, got me, ooh, and I'm expecting it to build on that, and that's
And
what
it didn't have to
unfortunately,
be
yeah, no,
boring. You can be historically accurate and not. And I think part of that has to do with, dumbing down film and television and art in general, and this need to pander to everyone. And maybe those are some choices to take out those little, what I'll call the Easter eggs for the geeks,
yeah.
right? The talking about artillery, or but again, how much more could we have squeezed in about his decision making? This is what is taught, again, taught entire courses at
Mm.
West Point, at Annapolis, at, all of our military academies are taught on how he made decisions, both strategically and tactically. And you have different commanders throughout world history, that also, they knew who to pull in, they knew how to have a nice, good team of advisors, and the successful ones employed both strategy and
Yeah.
tactics, and he was
Well,
definitely one, and they
well, that's the
missed
thing is he
that.
didn't. That's what I'm saying. Like everything leading up to what he kind of did to do his achievements in this movie, he just done without a reason. He just done it. Oh, that might
Yep.
work. There wasn't any like there was a couple of bits when he like went up to the fort and then was like looking, but there wasn't a reason to it. He just walked past, and then there should have been him making notes afterwards or something like that, or like coming up with a plan. There wasn't. He just set an explosive device off, and that's how they kind of got the upper hand. And it's just like that. And then even when um on the when he's going through the forest, and like he looks like a vagabond, and it's just like, but there isn't. You're not giving us a reason why the
Yep.
outcome. He like you're not showing us he did that because then he did this. And the reason he did that, like he moved his troops, hid his troops, there was reasons behind all that kind of element. It didn't, it just happened. So there wasn't that kind of, all he had to do was like have a right hand man that he explained everything to in the movie. Is like, well, no, we're doing
You
this
can use
because
that.
quickly, and it would have taken 30 seconds of dialogue to explain. No, we're
Yeah.
going to move it. Why are you moving your troops to that side? Oh, because blah blah blah. They're going to come in from the east, and I've seen them, and now we're going to get like the weather gauge or something. I don't know, but like it
Mhm.
it could have quickly said something. But yeah, it was yeah.
And he was a
Like,
voracious reader. So
mm,
they missed that. He was a letter writer, which they only touched on. And he did, they did quote his letters to Josephine saying, "Why won't you write me back?" Um, but he was a voracious reader. So he could have also referenced the fact that
yeah.
he was modeling all of the great military leaders in history, right? He's modeling Caesar, he's modeling Alexander the Great because he's read every book. That's how he came from, it's another one of
See, I
those
don't
tales
know
of
if that
someone
mummy
who's
was supposed to be Alexander
self-educated.
the Great. That's what I thought they were
Yeah.
trying to say. I thought, are you trying to say that's Alexander the Great? I was like, but I'm just not too sure because that again, that could have like
Yep.
just like historically they could have gone, oh sir, this is meet Alexander, open it up, but it wasn't. It was all a quiet scene, wasn't it? It was just like so again, they're trying to explain stuff visually, but you've got no idea where you are in the timeline or where they are and what they're doing there. So it's a bit, yeah.
Or why.
Or what?
I would watch it again. I will watch the director's cut. I'll give it time. I'm gonna give it
Mm,
time. I'm not gonna watch it right away because I'm too ticked off about this movie. Um, it has made me want to learn more because again, in my education, Napoleon was he was the guy who sold us the Louisiana Purchase, and he had other wars going on to distract the British. From our perspective, the British were distracted by France, and therefore we could soundly defeat them in the War of 1812. That's a little bit of an
yeah.
exaggeration. I think the British just got tired. But it, you know, it makes me want to learn more. Certainly makes me want to learn more and read more and read his writings. I love first person primary sources. So, his they did make the commentary about his letters being sold. And so that's great because we have them.
True.
Um
True, right.
yeah. Yeah,
It probably is, yes.
yeah.
Well, you talk about his yeah, they do make the reference of his letters being, is it? Yeah, they do that, saying like one of the valets kind of things. Yeah,
Yeah.
got it out
So
there.
we
Yeah.
we have those, and we have his writings, and we have.
Well, you do if because my girlfriend is very, oh, I didn't know about that, and then started reading. And if this is true, it is a hilarious like fact. Is there is something in Connecticut of Napoleon's
Oh, is it?
his penis.
Is that where it ended up?
Yeah, apparently,
Why
yeah.
is that
So
so?
somebody paid for the
Oh,
doctor
did they?
like dead to cut off it, but the guy then emigrated to the Americas, and there was an auction, and then it got bought by a really like, dentist and like that, and apparently it's a wiveled up, yes, and
Sounds
it's in
about right.
somebody's home, and I was like, what a weird fact that is, like weird like that. It's like, yeah. So there you go.
That sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah, so you can find all weird things, but that's say like there is so much about the history of of it, of that, like just the period is quite an epic period of like that, especially because it's like there's so many wars, I suppose, like that, and you got the hype of the British Empire. Really, it's like a very we've ruled the waves really, and just not to have it, just not hit it home, and especially I can understand. It'd be like it's weirder for me that he's a British director, and I'm like, that's what I was
Yes.
like. Okay, you're gonna go like you. That's why I was like when they said, "Oh, it's pro-British," I was like, okay, you're gonna really show the downfall of like just the like the big, like the big battles that kind of turned the tide to like the allies, I suppose you call them, of Europe against Napoleon, but they just it just wasn't. It just wasn't
I
anything.
didn't
But yeah,
feel that. I guess maybe as an American,
yeah.
I didn't feel that it was pro-British,
No,
but,
not at all.
from
Not at all. I
your
didn't at all.
perspective or France's perspective, that might be different. In fact,
Mm,
I was reading an article yesterday that, um, this did really well in the French box office. Like, it's
yeah.
actually being received quite well in
Mm.
France, and it
It's
did
got
well
panned
here.
by the critics, but yeah, it's got like it did quite well. But it's a bit odd. But like it's weird because, as you said, like Napoleon isn't well taught, I suppose, the best way
No,
in the American schools. So why wouldn't you just for like to get bums on seat have a mention about the war in America? Just have a reference.
I don't
Oh,
understand at
people
all.
get like like I say, a lot of Americans got excited. We're mentioned. Yeah, we're in the movie. And like dumb it down that easy, but like not have anything. It's just it was a bit. It's just it's just a miss hit. That's all I have to say. It's not a home run. There we go. Got my American bit in for you.
There you go. That's not cricket, right?
Yeah, it's not cricket. There we go. Yeah, but yeah, I it's one of those ones I will rewatch. It will be, but I say you have to give it time. At the moment, it's a 4 or 5 out of 10 for me. It doesn't hit home because I was hoping it was going to be more,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't anything for me. It was just it was a movie. It just felt flat. It just felt you're not telling the story of the person I'm supposed to be here to watch. I'm not seeing Napoleon. You're showing me a bloke that is attacking people in Europe. That's it. And doing it for no reason really, then people just don't like him. It's for
I'm
me,
in a
yeah.
6. I do really
Mm.
give it, give it some credit for trying to tackle some history. Um,
That's it, yeah. But that's the thing, like I miss like historical, like at least that's happened. Like we've not got an over the top, like at least like somebody funded this. I'm guessing because it was Napoleon, Ridley Scott. Like I think this is going to do okay at the box office. I don't think a lot of people can do it, but it'd be good to get like this kind of drama, war, kind of historical events going more often because they died to death. Like we haven't
mhm.
had one of these kind of movies for a long time. Kind of like this kind of epic historical. I can't remember the last one that I went to the cinema and went, oh, I really want to see that. You know, so it's not a good one. So, but
So
we'll
as
wait
of
and
right
see.
now, for its opening stretch, now Napoleon did open on a Tuesday, which is kind of, strange, but that's because
Yeah,
it's
here on a
our
Wednesday.
Thanksgiving week.
Mm.
So, our opening day would have been on Thursday normally, but Tuesday because of the extended holiday. So for the extended period through yesterday, Napoleon has made 79 million, while Disney's Wish, which it um, thought would
Opened
be
on the
the big
same day here.
thought it
Yeah.
would be the big family draw. Wish only pulled in 49 million. So Napoleon beat
Yeah.
Wish by 30 million just
Mm,
in the first 4 days.
yeah.
Um, so not a good week, not a good opening for Disney, but I think people just want something different. There's
Yeah.
nothing to look forward to, and I
No, that's what I'm
went,
saying. It was a different movie of its kind, except for Disney giving you, I say you're going to go and see a Disney movie, you're going to be disappointed. That's what I feel like. Even if it's something I
"Yep,
wanted to watch, I'm going there to be disappointed. This, I was like, ooh, like look, they've done a
give it a
Napoleon. I'm
try." Yeah.
excited. I'm going to give it a go. And like I said, I haven't been to cinema like for ages. Like yeah, so it was one I wanted to see. I was like, this has got to be a cinema movie, and I
Mhm.
felt like it wasn't. It felt like it was a streaming service movie. That's it.
And
And
I
it's
went, "Did
probably
you go to IMAX? Did you go to IMAX?"
no, we don't have one near me.
I saw it in IMAX,
Okay.
and it was super
Yeah.
disappointing in IMAX. The
It
last
doesn't
movie
need to be seen. It like them the battle scenes should be you have to see this at the cinema to feel the battle. I
Yes.
want to be reverberating in my seat about the battles,
I
but
did not
no.
feel like this needed to be in IMAX. Now, I
Mm.
saw the last movie I saw in IMAX was Dunkirk, and I saw it 3 times in IMAX
Mm.
because I'm one of the I know it's controversial. I love the movie Dunkirk, and
Dunkirk, yeah, but it's like I saw it at cinema and I saw was it 1914 or 1918? It's 1914. I can't remember which one, and they've got them cinema time moments where you're like, whoa,
yes,
I'm at the cinema. You feel like you're in it, and they are good. You're like, I like Dunkirk. I think it's like very well. It's really well shot, and it's like that. Yeah. But yeah, it feels
you're
like
right. This one didn't
you
need
need
to
to
be
see it.
in
It doesn't need to be. It's like
didn't
that,
need to be in
especially
IMAX. There was no reason to pay
no,
20 bucks a ticket to
mm,
see this.
no.
Um,
Uh,
which I didn't
uh,
mention, by the way, our tickets are $20 to for
no.
IMAX.
Well,
So
okay.
what is that? 25 or
Yeah.
$28,
What?
28
Yeah.
pounds, whatever. No, it's the
Dark
other way around.
at
It's
the
the other way
battle
around.
in Waterloo. How did they do my people? Unless you're British or French, they didn't do any people. That's
Oh
it.
no, they
That's it.
didn't show any no Belgians. No, there's no
No,
Belgians in Waterloo. What do you mean?
no Dutch, no Belgians.
No.
There's actually no. It's literally British against French in this. They
And
ignore any other nationality except for when you see some cavalry from the Prussians
most of
come
him
in. So
speaking in American accents, and that was
yeah, I must say that kind of annoyed me that there was
mhm.
no
No
French
attempt.
actors.
No
There was no
attempt.
no,
You could have
and
used French terminology, even
yeah,
if you okay, so, Kevin Costner attempting to do Robin Hood and then dropping the
mm,
accent halfway through the movie, I guess, is the standard for let's not even try, right? So,
yeah, because
Joaquin, but
I can't
use
remember
French terminology.
yeah, I don't get like the lady plays Josephine. I know it's supposed to be like Jodie Comer, and I was like, if they had her, would they just let her do a Scouse accent? And I was like, it would have been hilarious because they just didn't even like it was
Not
just
even an
it
attempt.
was yeah it was just do what your own accent is, and it was just a bit okay. You're not even trying to pronounce it. It was just a bit. It was a weird. Yeah. Mm,
So,
yeah.
another little bit from military education here in the United States
Yeah.
is that
1917. Thanks,
when we
mate.
study, French and German, Prussian military tactics prior to the Civil War, our commanders adopted the French terminology. So here in
Yeah.
the United States, we would have been using French terms, a few of which still exist today. Like when you go up in a plane, it's a sortie, and but it's a maneuver, and it's
Yeah.
the avant and they didn't even attempt it, and we speak it today. It's like the 2 areas where we speak French is cooking and military tactics in the United States, and they didn't even not even the terminology. A few words here and there would have been nice. And when showing the newspapers, that that ticked me off more than ever. When showing the French newspapers, it
Oh, in English.
should have been in
Is it?
French and then maybe,
We
translated
didn't
on
yeah, but I don't
screen.
think you even say because it was so quickly on screen. You're looking at the caricatures,
Yeah, but
and
all
that's
the
what your
words were in
reference
English.
is.
Come
Yeah.
on. Come
Yeah.
on. Make an
Yeah. I don't.
effort.
Yeah.
We're not all
Yeah.
dumb.
No. That's
It's
why I was like,
dumbing down.
I said to you, like in the trailers, that Three Musketeers. and of course it's it's French. It's a French story,
En
and
français.
I liked it. It was in French, and I was like, somebody's giving this really high budget French movie, and it's going to be in French because I hate to say it, if I go to see a French, I would have rather of them had a French actor I didn't hear about, and the whole
Yes,
movie is in French until you got to the like, and then you got to cross over to the British
you
scene
can
in
do that.
English, and the Dutch in and the Germans and all that, and like the Russian. Now I could have lived subtitles. I could have lived with subtitles in this movie because I think it would have more immersed you of where you are in reference to
Yes.
Europe at the time. But yeah,
I
it's just
adore Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I
mm,
will never watch that movie dubbed. I
no,
watch it with subtitles and I love it, and it doesn't take away anything from the film. In fact, listening to the expression of the actors, even though I don't understand the words, is so much more important, and and how many films do that? Begin in another language and then slowly translate in.
yeah,
That would have been a better, a better option.
yeah.
I
The battle is here. The battle could have like I'm not been horrible. There was it could have been a field anywhere in the world. There was it doesn't there was no like sorry go like the Waterloo. They could have like led up. They went past a village, like had some reference of actually where Waterloo is. It's like or but
Abe says, "Je n'aime pas de tous ces films."
so my
You
French is
don't
bad
like
and
anything about this film. Is that what you're saying, Abe?
now, if you've not seen it, the worst thing is, would I recommend it? I probably wouldn't. I would say if you've got Apple Plus, wait till it to come out on that. I
Yeah,
yeah, it's because if you like old battle movies, it's not really for that. If you like romance,
it's
it's
not
not
for
really
that.
there. If it's historical, it misses the mark too much, and it's like it's a bit too drawn out, and it's like that. But yeah, I don't see again the hype over the Oscars are rubbish now. Is people pipping this for all like to clean house at the Oscars? I'm like, I can't see it. I can't see where an Oscar would be go to except for possibly costume design and probably cinematographer.
Cinematography,
That is
maybe.
it.
Definitely not screenplay.
No,
The writing is horrible.
mm.
Um, where would you go with acting? Any nod for acting? I can't even think of one in this.
The only one I liked was like because he had the thing was that the guy who played Alexander the First, but
Yeah, he was
he's
good.
on screen. He's good on.
Probably
I thought
doesn't
every
have enough
time with him,
time.
he doesn't have enough time. But every time I was like, I was like, oh, I'm engaged on what you're saying. You're coming across quite well. You're really delivering like your lines
Yep.
really well. But they were the most meaningful lines probably in the movie. I said the other one is the Josephine's son. He like does it
He was
well. Except
great.
for like
The musical score
ev-
was terrible. I
yeah
It took me out of the film instead of drew me in. So we'll have to see, as we get closer to Oscar, what Oscar noms come out in January, like
yeah.
late January. So we'll have to,
But
we'll
then it probably
have
will
to
do because it's literally what else you got.
what else
What
has
else
come
have
out
you got?
this
And
year?
then, but then it's going to be a nominated because you can nominate. Like, they found like the studios will nominate them their own movies. So this is probably the only Apple one out there. So they're going to nominate it, aren't they? So it's
Mm-mm.
going to be a bit odd. But yeah, it's not Oscar worthy in the slightest. This movie, if it was old back in DVD days, this movie would be forgotten. It's only because it's going to go on the streaming site, then people will be able to see it again.
Yeah.
That's it. But yeah, but I would recommend so many like Waterloo. Watch the whole every single season of Sharp. Like even Sharp Waterloo is better than the Waterloo in this. And it's like that. So, but
Love Sean Bean.
yeah,
I have to go back and watch those.
I do.
Definitely
It
have
was
to go back
brilliant.
and watch those.
But
Oh, well,
yeah,
this was fun. I'm glad to know that, I'm in good company because I felt a little guilty about being so harsh about the film. That's why I kept trying to have like some positive to say about it. because I
I
don't.
just couldn't. I was like, I said, like, when I was speaking to my girlfriend, I was like, the only thing I liked was the costume design and the cinematography on the battles. And she was like, I completely agree. She went, I'm a designer and I loved looking at like the costume designs, and that's all I got drawn into. But she goes, most games I just didn't get it. And she was just like, she was the whole romance thing, and like to bless her, she will watch those like Netflix ones where I can't remember, like Bridgerton,
Yeah, yeah.
and she will not get angry. Whereas I will get angry watching that and just go, "Oh, it's absolutely stupid." But she will
Instead
watch
of
it as just
Outlander, or
as things like, no, it's just romance. It's just it's there. It's not supposed to be like historical correct, even though it's set in a historical period about historical people. Like that gets me angry. But she even said, like, I just don't get what they're trying to do. I don't get the historical references at all. And she was like, it just makes the whole the main characters in this don't click, and it just disjoints you from the movie. And she
there's
didn't
no
like it. She was like, I just don't like it. And she was like, even the battle scenes, I was impressed. She was like, but all they're doing is killing horses. And I was like, oh, okay. She was like, there's nothing to the battles. They're just a battle to happen. She went, they look good, but she goes, but I think anybody could have done it. And I was like, okay, great, yeah. So
It
yeah,
is.
but she
You
would,
you
yeah,
said it was like a wasted opportunity, and it really
it
was,
was,
because real history is 1,000 times more interesting than any fiction ever written. Real history is compelling, and real
mm,
history is amazing. And so any director or writer who can't capture that is either lazy or arrogant, because they think they can fix it and make it better, and they
yeah. Well,
never
that's
do.
what he kind of
They
said.
never
Is
do.
like, then he said like, well, nobody was there, and I was like, well, watching after your movie, the only thing that you could reference that to is when they're having their one-on-one moments, and that's the weird bits about the whole movie. So the bit you're really proud of, that you're saying, well, nobody was there, so nobody knows, and you had a kind of clean slate to, because nobody knows what's behind, I suppose, closed doors to a man and wife, is but that's what you put. That's what you put on paper and you signed off to, and then it's just it's
That's why as
not one.
historians, we research and then
Mm,
we interpret history. We're called interpreters, and you find the best sources and the most likely scenario for those situations where you don't have a witness, and you use all of really good methodology to figure out what would have happened, and
yeah.
everything about the two characters, and what came out on this paper is probably what wouldn't happen. You have to, it's
Mm,
not just because no one was there so anything crazy could have happened. No, that's not how history is done. It's
mm.
painstaking, it's detailed. We use you know all kinds of proof standards, and I know that's not what this is. It's not a documentary. I totally get it. But yeah, I caught that little arrogant quip of his. Nobody was there, so how do you know?
Yeah, I was
We
like,
do
yeah,
know.
it's just like, oh, yeah, but but like the whole like if you're French, I'm guessing more than any other country, you get brought up in that there's a love story there. It's an epic love story, and that's not a love story. That's not romantic. It's I wouldn't even class it as, you get these like arranged marriages, let's say, in the medieval times, like signed off, like you have the king comes out, like queen or whatever, from France to Austria, you're going to marry the fifth daughter of somebody in Russia or whatever, and then they just put up with it. I didn't even get the sense of that, like there's that kind of like, we're here because we just need to do this for the country, and we're just going to bumble on through it. There's not even that kind of aspect to it. It's just not how a man and wife would talk, not how a relationship is at all, because they don't hate each other, they don't love each other, they're just not me with each other.
Yeah,
It's just they're just there to be on screen, and it's just not. It just doesn't feel like any kind of relationship. That's what I felt a bit weird on it, because it you do get those you know, them movies where you go, oh, that's a bit of a creepy relationship, but they both are into it, or one isn't, and one's overpowering, and you know, it's a bit domineering, or you know, there's you know, something gone wrong in a relationship, like you know, there's that bit when he slaps her and like the divorce thing, and you're like,
That
but
was
he's not
so
shown
out
that.
of character.
Yeah, and
Even
I was
for the
like,
little character we had, that was so out of
yeah.
character.
And I was like, where's that come from? You've not shown that aspect of your character that you are going to be like that. If it's anything, it's going to come from her because she's been the like the more domineering one into your one-to-one speeches. So you would expect, you know, her to have been more forceful in everything, but then she wasn't. Especially, as I said, back in the sex scenes, it's just a bit like you would have thought for her to go, I'm going to make you love me and I'm going to make you obsessed. You're going to write 10 letters and I don't have to write any because I'm going to win you in the bed. And apparently it was a known thing that I think, again,
Yeah.
I read it called like the zigzag technique or something.
That's in the
Something
Andrew
weird.
Roberts
Yeah.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was known like, I was like, oh, they should have shown that is like she literally dominates him in like when they close that door, he's the bitch, let's just be honest, and he like, you know, she's like a dominatrix, modern dominatrix, and he loves it. But then like he goes back to statesman, you know, and it's just, but that would have made it more clearer of why the reaction was, but then it wasn't. It was just, yeah, the rabbits go at it. It's kind of a bit just a bit bizarre.
It was. It was just
Mm,
so choppy. I'll be
mm.
interested to see how others like react if any of the, the other folks that we follow online
Yeah.
do a review. I know Film Threat did one today or yesterday. I haven't checked
Yeah,
into that yet.
I've not caught anybody's other reviews, so it would be good. But yeah, it's been good. I say it's such a letdown because I was expecting us to geek out about the
I know.
history elements of this, and I really did. I was like, me and Sandy can get a geek on and go, oh, this bit so on point. And I know, like you recently read it, and I was like, oh, I could, you know, about like the farm bit, and I was like, that's why I was like looking forward. I was like, they're going to really dominate onto that, and
Ugh.
like, and I was like, they just didn't do anything, and I was like,
Well, I was
it's
very
just about,
sad to get your message after you saw the film. I mean, I knew how I felt about it. I was
yeah,
hoping you would enjoy it more, but yeah, when you
a
sent your
blunt
message,
4 or 5.
4, 5, ugh,
I was so, but I was the same because I was gearing up for it to be one or two things. And I was like, I don't mind if it's this, but I really want this. And then it just wasn't either. And that's why I was like, that's what I'm saying. I'm not peed off with it. I just was like, I don't get it. I just don't get what you were trying to show me through the movie. So
So I
yeah.
wonder, because this was months ago that I had seen the trailer and I said, "Oh, we're gonna have to plan to talk about this."
Mm.
I don't think there's anything else I'm looking forward to. I can't even think of.
Watch now. Go and watch the Three Musketeers movie. Sorry,
Okay,
trailer.
I'm gonna
It
do
was. I
that.
was like, that was good. Eva Green. Anybody watch it? I was literally. I
Okay.
watched it and I was like, huh. Because before that, I think the trailer just before that was Aquaman, and
Yeah,
I
I
was
got the Aquaman too. Not.
I was just laughing to myself, and I was like, oh my! I looked and I went, oh my god, that is terrible. And there was another one before it, and I was like, just like these are all for nothing to look forward to. And then it kind of this epic. What is this? What's this about? And then it went into like all the Three Musketeers, and I just sat back and like, oh. And afterwards, we went, that looks really good, doesn't it? And I
Good.
was like, oh yeah, but it looks like it's one of those things. I don't think it's going to do well internationally, but I think it looks and feels like it's going to be a good movie because, hey, say people are fickle and they don't like reading subtitles, so that's probably why it won't do that well at the cinema. I think,
Yeah,
but
I'm all
it
for
does.
it. I'm all for it.
No, but yeah, I was like, I'm going to see that, and I'm like, that is my next movie. So, and I think let's have a look. Actually, I think it's out this year. But I say it was like hidden, like completely. I was looking. Yeah, I can't remember. It's actually free.
There's the
Uh,
Wonka movie.
There you go. It's part. Oh, we go. So it's part 1 of
Oh,
2.
all right. That's
I think
ambitious.
so. Let me just show. Yeah, here we go. Let me just do this, get the poster up at least. But yeah, it's part, yeah, so but it just looks, look at it now, it just looks really good. Really good. Download. Let me get up let me show everybody the poster. Where is it? Ooh, there you go. So that's the
Ooh.
poster. So it looks like, ooh, it looks like everything that was the look of the whole thing. And I was like, oh, it looks really good. And like that. So yeah.
Part 1, D'Artagnan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was in different parts. So I wonder the other one, but definitely go and watch the trailer now. Is it on IMDb trailer? Yes, the trailer is on IMDb now. So go and have a look.
I will do that.
It looks really good, but I didn't know it actually was part 1 or 2. So that actually is
Does it have a release
even
date
better.
on the site you're looking?
It is released. No, I'm sure it said in December. I'm sure it is. Let's have a look. Release date. I'm not too sure.
Oh, we do. December 8th.
Yes, December 15th for us apparently.
We get it before you do.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. So it must be screeners for that. But yeah, it's worth a good
Oh,
look.
no. I'm sorry. It says it. No, it does. It says in USA. Okay, so it says released in French theaters on the 6th, and then in the US on the 8th. This is the first. Is it going to be 3?
Here you go. Outcast. I saw. I've seen that Musketeer movie too.
No,
There you go.
oh no.
Maybe it's been re-released, but I don't know. But that's what we saw at the
It's
cinema.
been released in theaters and on demand on the same day.
Okay, there you go. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I would still see it in the theaters, but
I think it's one of those ones. I was like, I really want to see that at cinema. So, but it looked really good.
Yeah, it will be released on video demand and digital on the same day.
I never get that. I'm like, why would you do that? Because it's just like not a lot. Everybody's gonna kind of go there, so it's a bit.
It's a 2-part epic.
Oh, it was released. There we go. It was released on Blu-ray in the UK about 3 months ago. Was it any good? Was it any good? So it was released already.
Hey, Outcast Creative, was it good?
Yeah, it looks really epic. It looked good, but then if that's part 1, they released it, and then it must have done well to go back on the cinema. So I'm hoping it's good.
So what it says here is that the once it was completed, that Samuel Goldwyn Films, US, MGM film, former MGM, purchased it. That can't be good. In order to release it, oh, this is horrible. Okay, so this wonderful French film was made. An American company purchased it, and it was released in France in April.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? So the sequel will follow in 2024. And that's all it says. So I'm quoting Variety right now. I'm quoting Variety from a few weeks ago. So
we'll have to we'll get you on when we all see it. That would be better. There we go.
Let's plan to do that. Let me.
We'll plan on. Let's get. We're all 3 of us then. We'll do it like a whole review. You have to do it.
I don't like when films are released on video at the same time.
No, I don't. Yeah, I never get it when they do it now. It's like streaming and cinema at the same time. They sometimes do. Like, why? Why?
Cheapens the experience.
But you also lose. Yeah, but you're also losing money of anybody who actually wants to go to the cinema. I always think, like, if you go, if it's like something happens, you're like, oh, sod it, I'll just watch it on TV. It's just like that, yeah. Because it's not like I'm going to go back. It's not like in the 90s we had a little TV. Everybody's got like a 55-inch TV or something these days, most of the time. So it's not like, it's not like you're having to watch it on a little box screen. Like you don't get like a good capture, but
No, I think about
it's
the
good.
the films I wish I had seen in the
Mm,
movies because I either wasn't born or I was way
mm.
too young, but
Yeah.
having not seen Star Wars or Empire Strikes Back in the theater is something that really bothers me. I did
Yeah, it was a bit
see
like Lawrence Arabia, and the cinema would have been a completely different
Oh my gosh,
experience. Like just got epic
definitely.
shots, especially with the music. Like that would have been a hell of a one. It's like,
So
but they
many
are.
films. I was lucky to
Mm.
see Return of the Jedi.
And here, Sir Alex Guinness. So we brought up Sir Alex Guinness again.
Every
Just
time, Jesus! He's your mascot. You
there we go.
you even
Got him
brought
in.
him up when you were reviewing what was your recent one? Bass Reeves, one of your recent um vlogs. I swear to goodness, Alec Guinness came up and I don't know why. And I
I
said,
did it.
he's
Maybe
your
just
subconscious, he's your spirit animal. Alec Guinness is your spirit animal.
there you go. Oh, he's such a good actor, though. You can't
And I
beat
just have
that.
to say Peter O'Toole because he's mine. Peter
But...
O'Toole, Peter O'Toole. So
But yeah, it's good. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, glad everybody came for our review. I just want like a good review. I just want a good movie. It's like that. So, but
we'll get
yeah,
one. We'll
but we're
get one.
gonna. But soon, I'm actually ending Deep Space Nine because I rewatched it and I'm gonna go and do the Babylon 5 for you. So, and
The
I'm gonna.
first few episodes are a little slow.
Yeah.
Please
That's why I think
slog
that's
through
why
them.
that's why I think I did last time. I was like, oh, that's not my thing. But now I'm gonna go back and yeah, I would do it and then we'll do that. So it'll be that, and I think after that I'm edging towards Battlestar.
When
So
I'm with you on I need to
yeah.
rewatch Battlestar. I was thinking of putting on the old Battlestar DVDs on a watch
Oh
party,
really? Ah.
because I have the old and Io will argue with me. She does not like the new quote, 1994
Oh
Battlestar. She
yeah.
likes only the old
The
Battlestar.
old.
So
Okay. I don't
I like
mind
them both.
either. I
Love
like them
them both.
both. Yeah, I like them both. Like I think they've got different interpretations. It's like that. So, but
That was my Battlestar,
yeah.
Highlander, and Doctor Who were how I got here
Mm,
today. This is how I found our fandom, our fellowship. That's that's my path into
mm,
geekdom. And
no.
Transformers. That was the only
Yeah.
comic that I had was Transformers. So,
Yeah, Napoleon was huge disappointment.
oh,
I think that's probably a consensus. I watched B Babylon 5 recently. Good script, really stands out. The Babylon War. Yeah. And they aren't they like I think they're aren't they on about remaking that? But haven't
yes,
some
which
so
worries me. Like,
yeah, it's going to be one of
stop.
those things. It's like them ones, like there are ones in the back. And I'll be going about sites going off topic slightly, but like Farscape. Oh, I love Farscape, and I think if somebody tried to remake that, I was like, oh, come on, it was good as it was. Just leave it alone. It's not the most epic thing. It's not the most greatest thing, but I really like it. Just leave it alone.
Just let it be.
Leave it
Just
alone.
leave
But
it.
yeah. Mm.
Oh,
So yeah, okay. Uh, Anything else you got to say about Napoleon? I don't think there is because it's not like that's the thing. It's like it's so mid. You're like you can't rant angry about it,
no,
and you can't overpraise it because
nope.
it's just like ah
You're right.
like
I
that.
think you've captured it.
I enjoyed my popcorn more. Let's say that me and my girlfriend argued, sorted every time.
I got to go on a date with my husband, which is rare because
Amazing.
we don't agree on movies. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
agree on films.
And he liked it more.
He
Did
loved
they
it.
say
He
he?
likes
Yeah.
mushy romances, and I like these kinds of movies. So, film epic history type films. So it's rare that we agree. So it was a lovely, time out with him, which
Yeah,
is
we can
rare.
say that. We realized when we got there, we're like, oh my god, it's date night. And I was like, we haven't done a
Yay.
date for a while. We're like, oh, it's like that. So yeah, it was good to get out the house. It was but unfortunately the movie wasn't up to it.
No,
And I
well,
did just I said I saw Wish and I was like, there's nobody here for Wish. It's like
no.
there's nobody here for Wish.
There
I was
was
like
Wish
that.
and one other film, I don't even know what it was, at our theater, and, everybody was going into Napoleon, and our theater wasn't packed, but the IMAX movie theater
Mm.
is the biggest one.
No,
So, it was like
I would say it
one
wasn't bad.
quarter full.
We saw it. It was a Friday night, so it was quite poor. I suppose there was about 20 people in the cinema. That was it for Friday night. So, and the last showing in the evening.
Oh,
So you
wow.
think that'd be quite packed, but well, you think it'd be half full at least, but
You would
yeah,
think.
but
You would think. Well, I'm
but
I'm not surprised at your reaction. I'm glad I wasn't being overly harsh.
that's what I'm saying. I was like, oh, when I like first, I was like, I'll see what Sandy said. And then I was like, I'm not saying anything
Yeah.
because I think you're not gonna like it. But it's been good anyway. Oh, guys, thanks for everybody joining us. I say we have to do this and like, yeah, when we get to our history reviews, top 10 or whatever. Yeah, this won't be on it.
It won't.
It
Nope.
will be staying away. Like the thing is, it won't even go into my war section. It
Nope.
won't even go. It doesn't fit into any bracket. Like there's a lot of crossovers. This one, it doesn't fit any. Unfortunately, it doesn't
No, it
cross over
doesn't.
to any. It's just a bit of a things. But yeah, so you got a 6. I'm gonna go. I'm still gonna. If I'd fit like, because I can go 4 and 5. I'm gonna say 5, 4.5. I'm gonna give it. That'll be my bit then for the end.
That's fair.
But yeah, but everybody who turned up, thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed. Let me and Sandy having a little rant about Napoleon. But yeah, everybody have a great one. Have a rest of the your Sunday, I suppose, until we'll see you next. Okay, all right. Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye bye.